kneel and be amazed at the touch of the black man. I bring life.
I'm Captain Lou Albano talking to you about drugs. Kids, don't be afraid to say no. Anyone that asks you to use drugs is not your friend. Drugs can and will kill. Remember, don't be afraid to turn to your priest, your rabbi, your minister, your moms, your dads, your teachers, because drugs can kill. And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
For 10,000 years, Zordon has been trapped beyond reach, sealed away in a time barrier created during his final battle with Rita Repulsa. When Rita escapes her lunar prison, the universe expects her to return to dominance until a stranger descends like a spider. Vexala, a sorceress from the future, fuses with Rita in a storm of power. From that moment, the galaxy itself bends under a darker will, as Angel Grove becomes the front line in a war that began long before these Rangers were ever born. With Zordon lost, guidance falls to Dulcia, the last warrior of the Order of Meridian and Alpha 5, its surviving junior member. The viewing globe chooses 5 teenagers based on the capacity of their souls for good. Awkward, flawed, and untested, they are nevertheless bound by a desire for righteous justice. Teen genius Billy Cranston has upgraded the power coins, reforged to withstand the battles ahead. Yet one coin is beyond his reach, the green power coin, hidden centuries ago by Ninjor, who erased his own memory to keep Rita from finding the coin. The green coin lies guarded by the Dragon Zord and the mighty Titanus, a secret buried in the heart of Angel Grove. The Vexala's schemes outpace the Ranger's growth. In a brutal clash, she captures the green coin and seizes control of the Dragon Zord, crippling Titanus in the process. To wield this power, she forges something monstrous, an entirely evil Green Ranger construct, born from the heart of Dark Spectre and bound by her command. The result is not a corrupted hero, but a living weapon, designed to shatter the Rangers' unity. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers' journey becomes more than weekly battles. It's a treasure hunt across the Order of Meridian's legacy. Every victory unearths pieces of Zordon's mysterious hidden past, and every mistake strengthens Vexala's grip on the future. With Zordon's return uncertain and Vexala's empire expanding, the fate of the galaxy hinges on 5 souls chosen by light in a war born of darkness. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, it all started with me saying, I gotta know, is it real? Is Planet Gatorade really real? Is it really, really real? So I took a Gatorade rocket out into the... Yeah, no, there's no Gatorade pun there. I literally traveled through space inside of a Gatorade rocket, and it was going great until we started going way too fast, and, you know... With Gatorade, speed control is a little difficult, and so off we went, and I crash-landed. You know, I crash-landed. I mean, come on, like, look, I obviously, like, you know, it's in one piece, nobody died. Nobody died. And that's how I met Coolia Blue. So there I was on Earth, like, I gotta find Planet Gatorade, because I know there's a beautiful woman there that's waiting for me to steal her heart. And she was like, oh, Sida, you're so brave coming all the way across the galaxy to be my boyfriend. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why I'm here. And it worked. Son of a bitch, it worked. I'm still in the copyright defensible Megazord. Man, that's the last time I marinate chicken in Gatorade.
Go, Power Rangers! You mighty Morphin! Power Rangers! Jason! Jason, my love! Return to me. Urvakita is under attack. We need the Power Rangers.
We need Thunder Zord power! Now!
Well, here we are again, and we've got some interesting news. Some things are left, right, and upside down, and Toei is making some pretty big moves, if you ask me. This isn't just about Zets, by the way. Toei came out and talked to Deadline and other media outlets about their big moves coming here to the western side of the planet, the global market, as they like to refer to it. Above and beyond Japan, way far beyond the shores of the land of the rising sun, we will soon be getting more of Toei's wonderful content directly from the source. No more adaptations, no more Funimation, jelly bean, sexual harassment problems interfering with shows and movies being made. Nope. It'll all come directly from the source. I don't know about you, but I think that's good news. I think that's for the best, in my opinion. A lot of the trouble in the world is caused by miscommunication. And I think when you tear out the middlemen that are between getting these awesome Toei properties and getting these properties into the hands of the consumer, and when you take out the middlemen in that, the miscommunication rate goes down dramatically. But without further miscommunication, let me let you all know that over on boundingintocomics.com, that's right, we're not just a YouTube channel. We're not just a YouTube channel. We also have a website. And on that website, there's a neat little red button that says community. And you click on that button, it takes you over to a fancy message board. You remember back in the day when you could make a comment and it wouldn't just disappear after 10 seconds? It wouldn't just be a wash and a bunch of dog videos. And wouldn't that be nice? You make a post and there isn't just a bunch of depressed Pepes on either side of it. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, that's what this message board can do for you. Disquis, the comment servicer for the the articles where you could just reply to the article directly, they have a lot of policy changes that come through. And sometimes your comments disappear, get deleted, or the website itself gets punished for what the comments section is saying. So rather than have to deal with all that, we've migrated the conversation about what's happening in pop culture over to our community tab. So we encourage you to make an account over there, become part of the conversation, and let us know how you feel about what's going on. So, we have news here now about Toei. So as I said, we have the International Disruptors. Toei president and CEO Fumio Yoshimura unpacks Japanese studio's $2 billion expansion strategy. And you see right here, you got Gav prominently featured. Deadline knows what's good. Deadline knows what's good. But I do want to say hello to the folks in the chat. We have Mr. Scary Pasta saying, good morning, Bounding. Hope you're doing well. Well, it's been an exciting past few days, that's for sure. This news is, I don't know if it's exciting yet. We'll have to find out. Let's dig into it and find out, huh? Sakura Mita's here saying, well, it's nice knowing you Power Rangers. Yeah, exactly. You can't separate this stuff. It's not a good idea. But they've already ceased their contracts. There's no turning back time on it. So Mr. Scary Pasta says the same thing. R.I.P. Power Rangers, killed by greed and ignorance. I have Tim Drake complaining about the openings. Well, hey, I guess you could pick up a pencil and paper and draw out your own opening. Whatever you want to do, man. You could scream and yell in the comments, though. It definitely helps the algorithm. So feel free. Have fun. Mario Video, who are you? Stop saying D. I'm sorry. D is a necessary part of the English language. I have to say that. So Mario, whoever you are, I'm going to have to say D. I'm going to have to use it a few times, in fact. It's kind of an important part of the English language. So It's one of those consonants. It's important. Okay? Maybe chill out. Take a breather. Touch some grass, maybe. Maybe. Anyway, so back to the article at hand here. International disruptors. So this is a good news for anybody who likes, as I said at the beginning, straight from the tap Japanese content. This means it's going to be more readily available. You won't have to go necessarily. I don't know for sure. Excuse me. I don't know for sure, but you won't necessarily have to depend on Crunchyroll and Netflix to pull over things anymore. They'll be more available to us, sort of like how Kamen Rider Z is available over on Twitch right now. It's also available on Tokusatsu if you're interested in the latest episode. That's episode 4, by the way. We're already up to 4. Can you believe it? Year's almost over. So, one of Japan's oldest studios, Toei Company, has been producing film and TV content for more than 70 years, across multiple genres, including historical samurai flicks, contemporary crime dramas, and Yakuza movies, and its signature tokusatsu live-action special effects genre, including Kamen Rider, Super Sentai. I think they missed the mark on that one when they said Power Rangers, but Toei has been involved with the production of Power Rangers in the past, but I don't think in the manner that they're involved in Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. As you know, the Titanium Ranger was designed by Toei contributors. I'm not sure if Plex was around at that time, but it's basically Plex if it wasn't Plex. Same style. Toei, one of Toei's subsidiary companies, partner companies, if you will. So, but that's what I mean, is that like they're not like involved in the day-to-day filming of Power Rangers. So maybe missed the mark on that one, Deadline, but I get where they're going. The studio has a library of 4,400 theatrical movies, 39,000 episodes of TV drama productions, and more than 600 episodes of video streaming content, with recent movie releases including Oshinoko, The Final Act, a live-action adaptation of a popular manga, and period action thriller, Muromachi Outsiders, directed by Yuri Iri. Yuri Iri. I think I said that right. Iri. You'll have to let me know. Toei Company is a majority shareholder in Toei Animation. We would hope they're a majority holder, which produces hot anime and franchises including Dragon Ball, One Piece, Saint Seiya, Slam Dunk, and Sailor Moon. While the two companies are under separate management, Toei Co. is handling live-action remake rights to Toei Animation content internationally. Like many Japanese studios, Toei has long been focused on its huge domestic Japanese market, but now is looking overseas with a slate of development projects aimed at international markets, both original works as well as remakes of its hottest IPs. The studio also has plans to ramp up sales of its existing content, increasing international revenue's share of total income from 30 to 50% by 2033. My gosh, that is a hell of a lot of stuff that'll be entering the market. Holy. They're going to upgrade their studio facilities and post-production labs in Tokyo and Kyoto and work on co-productions with China and other territories. See, I don't like the Chinese tokusatsu. The super Leader, I think that's what it was. The Saver series, the Giant Saver, if you will. The Giant Saver series. They were very, I don't know. It feels very, I saw Super Sentai and this is like my best attempt. And again, like I do that with the AI, sure. But it's one of those things where it's like they're trying to create a separate property. I'm just trying to explain to Hasbro that they're overthinking their problem. It really annoys me that like the Chinese Kamen Riders, whatever they're called, one of them has like a direct rip-off of Kamen Rider Build's finisher kick. He literally has the same graph that he rides down like Lion Rider style into the enemy where he kicks him. Same leg. And it just annoys me immensely because it's like, guys, come on. You can do it. And China's just known for ripping off this stuff. So you know that they sat down, they're like, this is good enough. We scraped off the serial numbers. It's ours now. Quote, in the past, Japan had a large population and therefore market for entertainment content. And so we didn't see the necessity of going overseas, says Yoshimura, who has been with the studio for 37 years and was appointed to president in 2023. But now our population is declining, a trend that is not likely to be reversed. So now is the time for us to create new strategies. Yoshimura says North America and Asian markets are the first priority for the studio as it embarks on global expansion. These are the two largest markets on the planet, so that doesn't surprise me. Yoshimura says the priority. Asia accounts for more than half the world's population. Local contents are growing in nearly every Asian market, and the region is closer to us culturally, so it's an obvious place to start. But North America is also a huge market, so of course we would want to roll out there as well. We'd like to work on partnerships and affiliations, trying to bridge the gap we have currently. We are starting with production, so we're looking for partners that we can co-produce and create with. The idea is to produce content that can work in the North American market. And I don't know if you can tell how big my smile is right now because they are coming for Hasbro's lunch. Hasbro left the market empty. They didn't have to. They could have made just little 5-minute videos of people doing kung fu in the Power Ranger suits and put them up on YouTube. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to do anything big. They didn't have to create another series. They just had to keep the brand in the zeitgeist. And the closest they could manage to do that was not even being directly involved with the Ninja Kids collaboration. Netflix was the one that negotiated that with the Ninja Kids. Hasbro was like, got a note in the mail, BT Dubs YouTube channel is doing cool Power Ranger thing. And they were like, yeah, whatever, Netflix. And that was it. They weren't directly involved in that. They were like third stringer involved in that conversation. So Toei is sensing the weakness and like, okay, you don't want to continue doing this. We'll do it. And here they come. And I'm so glad. I am so glad that this is now out on the table, that they are making no bones about this now. It's great news, in my opinion. It's absolutely great news. But we'll have to wait and find out if this is going to mature into anything super substantial. But so Yoshimura says, whoops, I grabbed the wrong button here. Sorry about that. We also want to look at how we can expand our existing markets for special effects franchises like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Power Rangers. And I don't understand why they keep bringing up Power Rangers because that is not a Toei property. I mean, they might be investors, I guess, but Hasbro ceased all contracts with Toei. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. Again, maybe they are investors in the Power Rangers brand itself, and that's how this works. You'll have to let me know. Again, I'm not a Power Ranger professor. I'm not a Rangerologist. I know some of the behind the scenes stuff, the guts of how all this legal hot potato stuff works with the brand, but I don't know everything. I'm not a lawyer and I haven't been studying the legal documents. I've just been studying the retail market, how to get this stuff sold. So what I do want to bring your attention to is down here buried in the article, right? They're pointing out, for all their talk about helping Power Rangers, it says right here, in Japan, manga artists are highly regarded and usually retain the rights to their creations. So while Toei Animation produces the One Piece anime series, Netflix worked directly with its creator, Ichiro Oda, and on the live action series. Likewise, Toei and Saban are not involved in the live action remake of Power Rangers. Okay, Toei and Saban. So obviously Saban wouldn't be involved. They sold the rights to Hasbro. But Toei not being involved means that they're not consulting on suit designs. They're not consulting on monster designs, mecha designs, none of it. Now, because Hasbro is a toy maker in competition with Bandai, odds are Plex and Bandai's designs are not going to be involved in the reboot either. The live-action remake of Power Rangers currently in the works at Disney Plus, as Hasbro acquired international rights, excluding Asia, to the franchise in 2018. However, Toei has an experienced international production and license team on hand to help potential partners navigate its complex landscape. Okay, so that's where they're getting involved with Power Rangers, is that they, if you take the footage, we offer you a group that will help you adapt that footage. That's neat. If you're going to charge a lot of money to license it, you might as well make it easier for the people that are licensing it from you. That's pretty helpful. It's also pretty efficient. Leave it to Japanese efficiency. That really does cut down on the miscommunications. You remember all that weird stuff that was going on in the early Saban era when they didn't have a lot of Japanese translators around to help make sense of things. It wasn't until like the Thunder Zords showed up that they started really aligning what was happening in the Sentai footage with what was happening in the Power Rangers series. So then, of course, we had Time Force, which was just pretty much a copy and paste of Time Ranger. And that was a good job. That was a good idea. I can only assume the production team that Toei, assigns to helping Power Rangers be adapted, helped with that. I think there was another one, right? There was Lightspeed Rescue had a Asian actress, and I want to say she's from Japan. Lightspeed Rescue villains. Let me just Vipra. Yeah, wasn't Vipra from wasn't she the actual Super Sentai actress? And they like paid to move her over for the like teach her English and stuff? Isn't that how that went? I don't remember. I want to say that like something with Lightspeed was like brought over 1-to-1 from the Sentai, and it was a person. It wasn't like a costume or something. So I want to say it was Lightspeed that did that. Because like the Sentai female actress, she's in a lot of the footage from Go-Go 5. So they had to do something about her, and that was my guess, is they just brought over the lady. Do you guys know? Yes, yep, that's right. They used the Go-Go 5 footage. And so that's what I'm kind of curious about with that, is if the Vipra was the actual actress from Go-Go 5, or if I want to say that's how that went. I could be wrong. RJ McReady says he's optimistic. Optimistic about the Power Rangers reboot, or that it will end finally. It will be over forever. I don't know. Hasbro is as worse as Disney. Currently, yeah. The old Disney stuff was great. Probably like the prestige television of Power Rangers, if there ever was one, comparatively anyway. And we have the new Disney, which is obsessed with all those check boxes of like, oh, well, we need this representation here. We need that representation here. We need to make sure that this character is portrayed this way so that these people from Tumblr are not annoyed. Yeah. Very bizarre. Sagittarius Seiya says, I wish Toei of Japan takes away the Power Rangers from Hasbro. I don't think they can do that, but I understand the sentiment. I do. It gets embarrassing. And honestly, I don't, like I've shown you guys with the concepts I've put forward here, I don't believe that they can not do a Mighty Morphin reboot. The reboot of the franchise has to start at Mighty Morphin. They forced it to be the brand identity for over 10 years now. The market itself expects Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They don't know any other team. There's people out there like, oh, there's hundreds of thousands of fans. Great. But in order for a movie to make any substantial money, millions of people have to hear about it. And that's just not going to work with a new Power Ranger team. Ask yourself, do you go out and do you Google Power Rangers? No, you don't. You Google your favorite team, your favorite ranger, your favorite theme song, so on and so forth. So how do you get a unique Power Ranger team advertised? Ad blockers. Just about everybody and their brother has an ad blocker. Lots of people pay to have an ad blocker now. So guess what? You can't just whip it out there onto YouTube, throw it out onto Google anymore. It doesn't work like that. So what do? We have to go with what people are searching. And because Hasbro and Saban forced Mighty Morphin to be the singular brand identity of Power Rangers, you don't have another option. You can't get away from that. We don't have to try and pretend that, creating a new Power Ranger team is impossible, because it's not. It's not impossible. It's literally just spandex and fiberglass. It's not impossible. What is very difficult, and a lot of corporations do not want to take this risk, is trying to build something from scratch. That's the hard part. They don't want to go back to zero because there's no way to advertise that. How does Sentai get away with this? Because Sentai didn't make that red asshole wearing the Tyrannosaurus costume the central brand identity of Super Sentai. Every year there's a new Red Ranger. So what Sentai's brand identity is guy in red suit with helmet that has black visor, not red Tyrannosaurus Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's so ingrained, guys. It's so ingrained that between Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy and Spider-Man, you have the red Tyrannosaurus Mighty Morphin Power Ranger as a balloon in the Macy's Day Parade. That was over 33 years ago that Power Ranger series came out. So that's how the public is going to look at any reboot. They're not going to accept In Space. They're not going to accept Turbo. They're not going to accept Lightspeed Rescue. They're not going to accept Gozuger. I know there's people out there that they just move over Gozuger, just make that in it. Well, what do you do with people who don't know what the fuck Five-Man is? What do you do with people who don't know what the fuck Bioman is? Ta-da! Oh, you just make up a story about him. Great. Now you have almost half, if not better, of the characters appearing in this movie having no connection visually to what people recognize to be a Power Ranger beyond spandex, helmet, black visor. And that's not a brand aesthetic that Power Rangers established. That's what Sentai established. So while, yes, we fans of Sentai know very well which Ranger's which Sentai hero is which, we know this. The average person who is not a Power Ranger fan but might go see a Power Ranger movie does not know this. And that's, wish all you like for a new idea. I know I was until I did the research. It took a couple months, but I did the research. And what I found is that they have forced Mighty Morphin to be the brand identity to the point where the average American consumer, I'm not talking about Power Ranger fans. I'm not. There aren't enough of them to matter statistically. According to Google, only 36,000 people per month are searching the term Power Rangers. That's not Power Rangers in Turbo. That's not, in Space. It's not Power Rangers Turbo. That's not Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, Samurai, any of them. It is generally searching Power Rangers. Only 36,000 people are doing that per month. So I'm sorry. The brand is dead. And the only way to get it started again is dealing with these guys with the big white diamonds on their chests. That burned my ass for a couple of weeks when I finally got down deep enough into the data to discover that the average consumer does not recognize a Zeo Ranger. They don't even know the next series. They don't know what a Turbo Ranger is. If you showed them a picture and said that's a Power Ranger, they would say, okay, I accept that. But they, on their face, do not know that story. do not know who's wearing that helmet. They do not care either, because their investment in Power Rangers stopped after episode 22 in 1993. When Tommy stopped being an evil ranger. When he became a good guy, they were like, well, that was the coolest thing I ever saw. See you later. And they never came back. But they'll go see a movie about Tommy being evil, about the evil Green Ranger anyway. And that's why the corporations like Saban and Hasbro keep going back to that well and have turned it into the brand identity. Now, these people that love Mighty Morphin, well, they've kept the brand alive. They're the ones that buy all the toys, that buy the t-shirts, that turn out for the Reader Rewind comics and video games. So Hasbro keeps servicing them. Meanwhile, people who just either didn't have a connection to Mighty Morphin or are frankly tired of it, moved on to Super Sentai. And so Hasbro now has a market which is mostly made up, not everybody, let me just make that clear, not everybody, but mostly made up of people who do not have an interest in stories beyond what went on in Angel Grove. So in order to get any sufficient reboot started, because as I said, the Google search is not going to help us. The ad blockers are not going to help us. And people just genuinely, looking for a new Power Ranger team, that's not even a statistical anomaly, according to Google. That's barely a percentage point of people looking for new Power Ranger series, not Power Ranger news, as in like reboot news. So that's what you're up against, is this market has been thoroughly deep fried. So the only way to get it started again is to take it back to day zero, go to where people are actually paying attention to it. Again, I don't like this. I don't want more Mighty Morphin, just to be clear. I'm tired of it too. But the only way to get beyond it now is to start over with it and then migrate out, move on. It doesn't have to be to Zeo. I only make that recommendation because it fits nicely. That's all. Hasbro owns those properties. That's a nice add-on to that, hey, we don't have to go licensing new things. We already have copyright control of all of the previous Saban series, all of the previous Disney series. So let's melt all of those together into a, singular continuity. That way we don't have, what the fuck is a power crystal? What the fuck is a dino gem? What the fuck is an energem? What the fuck is a power coin? These four things do the same job. Okay? They do the same job. So melt them all together into one continuity. That way, you don't have a bunch of people wondering what the difference between an energem is and a dino gem. Because I can't tell you. It's just one team uses those and another team doesn't. That's the only thing that's the difference between them. So I said, well, let's just remove that difference and put it all in one place. This is what Hasbro should do. They own the rights to that Rhea Soldier armor that was Dino Fury. They own the rights to the Kyryuger weapons and machines, the mecha. So they should use them. They sold all the suits, so of course, redesign the suits, boil it back down to Mighty Morphin, and then build up from there. Like I said, it doesn't have to go into Zeo. You can go to a wildly different concept and have them move out of Mighty Morphin and a new group. This is, again, do not take the actors from Mighty Morphin, those Rangers, and give them new powers. That's a bad idea. Toei has shown us, we were talking about Toei. Toei has shown us that they, what you do with this is that you keep these teams like active in the background so that 10 years later, you can do a movie when the fans are older and they can spend more money on the merch stuff. And you can like create video games around that because again, the fans are older and they probably would interact with a video game more than they'd interact with a toy. It's just reality. So there again, there's an opportunity to work with what's already here. and then build out into brand new concepts. But for whatever reason, that's not the direction Hasbro wants to go, and it appears to be that they're just going to try and repeat 1993 with a little bit more pizzazz. And that's a mistake. Even the concepts I've put forward do not repeat exactly the events that happened in Mighty Morphin. Rita's gone. I showed you that at the beginning there with that lore video. Rita's gone in my setting. She's not part of this. She's been fused into Vexala. Vexala's power has the ability, her innate ability is to absorb people like Cell. So she takes on physical qualities of the characters that she absorbs. And that's that. You know, that's her. She's stacking power. So her being back in the past creates this timeline shift so that everybody's favorite Power Rangers were not erased. This is just a separate timeline now where things got really crazy out of the gate. And so all the things we expected to happen are now not happening, and much more extreme scenarios are happening. And like I said, it's not a good idea to do these series, 50 episode, 20 episode, even 8 episode series. Don't bother with them. Kids don't absorb information like that anymore. They like to rewatch things, stream it over and over and over again. They like their YouTube content. They like their shorts. So don't try to compete with all that shit. Make a 90-minute movie that they can stream over and over and over again, because that's what they do. Do teenagers do that? No. But the 8-year-old demographic absolutely does that. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that don't overthink this problem. Put out 2 90-minute movies a year for 3 years about Mighty Morphin, then move on. Put out 2 90-minute movies a year for 3 years about the next team, Zeo or whatever, and so on and so forth. Move on. That way you have this legion of Power Rangers that are like the backup, if you will, and you can have a war for KO 35, where Andros and Zane call upon the Mighty Morphin, Turbo, Zeo Rangers, and maybe even Lost Galaxy shows up hearing the distress call. So you have 5 compounded Ranger teams now fighting a war against Astronema and her forces, like the Quantrons, and Elgar came up with her. He left Divatox and went up with Astronema and Ecliptor. So now you have a whole new scenario that you can then reintroduce these older teams through and have them do cool stuff that everybody liked seeing them do before, and then they're gone. Then they're done. It's over with. Movie's over. The war was won. Yay, everybody goes back to where they came from. We don't have to keep bothering those actors, and we can keep on with a story that's either established or, born out of the conflict on KO 35. It's all there. It's all there. Inside of 6 years, you can be doing a completely new Power Ranger series and have a whole new universe to build inside of. Just 6 years, that's all you need. You don't need a huge MCU 10-year million movie universe to do this. But Hasbro doesn't have confidence in it, so they dumped it off on Disney Plus, and now it's going to be some really weird stuff. So, but who knows? We might end up with some lucky breaks here. I don't know. Just checking the chat though, catching up with the chat here. We do have Radioactive Cosmic Ray saying she was recast, but they got similar looking actors. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm just trying. I want to say that one of them brought over the Japanese actress, but it wasn't Lightspeed, I guess. Oh well. I'm sick of Hasbro using nostalgia baiting excuse as a reason for this terrible reboot decisions. And like I said, though, the market is wrapped around it because they spent 10 years making Mighty Morphin the singular brand identity of Power Rangers. They wondered why all their new teams kept failing. We have a Conrado Javier saying Power Rangers will end up like the Spider-Man's villain universe. Yeah, I don't doubt that. I expect a Power Rangers that is all over the place in tone, and they can't determine whether it's they're not gonna be able to communicate to you if it's a fantasy adventure, if it's a coming of age adventure, or if it's a, like one of those mythical heroes rising stories, you know? It'll be like all of them at once. Uh, Hasbro disrespecting JDF and Toy. Yeah, this is why I was trying to be careful with what I was doing with my concepts. Is I just wanted to make sure that nobody got the idea that I was trying to replace either of, or any of them, living or dead. That's not the case. These people are no longer teenagers with attitude, be they among us or with the Lord, but they are also foundational to the identity of Power Rangers and should never be replaced. That's not the case. And this is why those characters are not the ones that you remember from Power Rangers, despite having their names. Like I explained, Tommy is homeschooled. He taught himself martial arts. He's very closed off. But also, his unique quality is that he is above the others, capable of forgiveness. That's what makes him the bearer of light. Why Zordon chooses him is he has the ability, above Jason's even, to forgive. He doesn't become the leader of the team in my setting. He still remains a 6th Ranger subordinate, and Jason remains the leader because forgiveness will get you into trouble. It is necessary for good to forgive, but it can be foolish to forgive someone who has not repented. Okay? And that's why Jason is still the leader, is because unlike Tommy, he won't forgive so easily. Jason will go for the punishment as opposed to giving someone more opportunities to cause more trouble. And that's why he remains the leader. Because this is something that I think young men should have instilled in them, is that forgiveness is fine and dandy, tolerance is fine and dandy, but you have to have a line. It's heroic to self-sacrifice, it's romantic to self-sacrifice for other people, but eventually you become a doormat. And that's the difference between Tommy and Jason. Tommy wants to forgive so the world will continue being a peaceful place. Jason is willing to exact punishment in order to keep the world a peaceful place. Just one of those things. We have Rafael Navarro saying it's basically reinforcing the status quo of MMPR more than anything else, really. And that's what we're stuck with, is that the reboot has to start with Mighty Morphin. It's going to leave a sour taste in the mouths of people like you and I that don't want more Mighty Morphin. But that's what the research and all of the market data point to. After 10 years of forcing the Red Ranger to be the singular focus of the brand, like I said, there's a Macy's Day Parade for the Red Tyranno Ranger. Balloon for the Red Tyranno Ranger. It's not a whole parade. But there's, it's not any other Ranger. They're not refreshing that balloon every year to be a different Ranger. So the market is going to expect that. It's like a Pokemon. It's like Pokemon making Pikachu, the symbol of Pokemon. When you think of Pokemon, Pikachu. If Pikachu's not the first thought, he's among the first 5 when it comes to your mind. Likewise, when the average consumer of media, be they fans of Power Rangers or otherwise, thinks of the Power Ranger brand, more often than not, Red Tyranno, Mighty Morphin Red Tyranno is the one that comes to their mind first or among the top 5. And that's all they're able to extract with this market data, is that they have to push MMPR. They just don't have any faith with pushing past it. You and I could forgive a reboot that started with Mighty Morphin if it was already saying it was going to move on. It was already indicating that the story was bigger than Angel Grove and it was going to move on. Sort of like how Iron Man 2 was alluding that there was a bigger world, and of course Iron Man 3 was up its own ass about it. But it's like that we need the story to communicate to us that are tired of Mighty Morphin that there's going to be more, that there isn't going to be just 5 teenagers with attitude fucking around to the end of time. Radioactive Cosmic Rays says, if the reboot fails, Toei could buy Power Rangers, though. Nobody else would want the IP, and Toei have an incentive to get back international rights. Even Disney didn't want it at first. See, this is the thing, is Power Rangers has been a really weird hot potato. You and I see a lot of potential in it, but corporations have a very hard time doing much with it because the main focus is to sell the toys. And the issue is that Power Rangers exists in a market with Paw Patrol and Blaze and the Monster Machines. And if you've ever seen a single episode of one of those shows, you know it has nothing to do with violence. The Blaze and the Monster Machine conflicts are all resolved through correcting a misunderstanding. There are characters that want to take a shortcut. That creates a problem. That creates a misunderstanding. And after a short talk, everybody is back to being mostly friends. There's no animosity. Paw Patrol, similarly, is about people who get into, like, natural disasters happen, an accident happens, or someone just genuinely gets themselves into trouble being a nuisance, just being an idiot. They cause their own trouble. And the Paw Patrol puppies have to go rescue them. And intermingled with that is Power Rangers. And the resolution to their conflict is the monster dies at the end and it blows up. It literally dies screaming. And that's we're the good guys. And that's what Power Rangers is. That's what Power Rangers, that's how they end the conflict of the episode. It flatly cannot exist in the 5 to 8-year-old market that Hasbro and Disney and Saban have been aiming it at for the past 30 years. It can't exist there. Even back in the day, the moms of America had a huge problem with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers behaving like a regular Saturday morning cartoon until the action started, and then all that imitatable violence started. Now, was the violence the problem with Power Rangers? No. The demographic it's being aimed at is the problem. See, Japan has a different relationship with violence. Children, will go out and imitate the violence, right? They'll go out and imitate the violence. But it's not in the same way that American kids will, because Japanese kids, the culture itself asks people to be respectful in public. The majority of the time, children acting out in public are having an extreme problem happen to them. There is a very big problem with a child who is acting out in public. And I'm not referring to like little babies. I'm referring to like 8-year-olds. If an 8-year-old is acting out in public, there's an extreme problem in Japan. If this is happening for a Japanese child, there's an extreme problem. It's just a different culture. They're not superior. We're not wrong. We're not right. They're not wrong. It's just a different culture. And so when we have this discussion about how Power Rangers should function in the marketplace and who it's aimed at, it really needs to move up to the 8 to 14-year-old demographic. But they can't sell toys to those kids. Those kids are into video games, and video games cost a little bit more and are a tad bit more irritating to maintain than stamping out an action figure somewhere in central China. I Am Writer says JDF was right about this all this time, and we all didn't listen to him when Hasbro bought Power Rangers. Yeah, he stormed out. You remember, he stormed out of the Hasbro offices there while he was getting started with White Dragon. He stormed out. He said he's never going to work with them again, and he didn't. And that, I don't blame him. Hasbro doesn't know what they want to do with the brand because they didn't want it to begin with. The previous CEO bought it without notifying research and development, marketing, even HR. Didn't notify anybody. He just wrote a check to Hayam Saban, and he walked away with the Power Ranger rights. That's that. Hasbro had no idea what to do with this. They literally had it dropped into their lap. Are they the good guys here? No. Should you feel sympathy for them? No. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's not that hard to make Power Ranger toys. Just call Bandai up, all right? But they didn't want to do that. The leading theory I believe in about this is they broke off with Toei. As you can see right here, they broke off with Toei because they have to redesign all of the Bandai toy designs in order to obey international copyright law. If they don't, why aren't they just repackaging the Bandai toys? Why go through all the trouble of making these watered-down, shittier versions of the Bandai toys? You've seen them. Go check out the Cosmic Fury action figure and compare it to the Bandai release of Q Ranger, the Megazord figure. Go check out that from Hasbro. Then check out that one from Bandai. The quality is wildly different. So why would they bother redoing that, wasting that plastic, that time, going through and having a new mold made and all that other stuff? because you can't just 3D print these things. They actually have to go through a process of having someone sculpt all this stuff out, having it pressed into metal, all this stuff, carved out of metal, machined out of metal, you know what I mean? So it's not like a 1-2 process. It's a lot of like dumb bullshit that has to happen in order to get those watered down, much less attractive figures being made. And so that's my theory with this is that Hasbro did not want to keep having to change Bandai's designs and suffer the consequences of that. So they're going full bore with trying to make their own Power Rangers thing. But they're doing that because the investors want to see Power Rangers turn out a profit. And I think that's why we keep getting these misfires with Power Rangers and all this merchandise that goes nowhere, sort of like the Power Rangers reignition thing that somehow is making a profit, by the way. It's one of the leading toys for the fall toy market. I was reading a report about that yesterday. I forget which website it was. But yeah, it's going to be wall-to-wall Mighty Morphin Power Rangers until we can convince them to move on. And that's what my strategy was, is innately build into, you know, this reboot that it is wildly different and melted down with all of the trappings of modern Power Rangers. Battleizers, extra motorcycles, extra Zords, that sort of thing, extra morphers, that sort of stuff. And that's what made it unique, is it added on. They could afford to do that. So we'll have to see what goes on with this. Don't have a lot of confidence. Mr. Scary Pasta says, gotta go, need to throw up. Can't stand what Hasbro's doing. I'm literally sick to my stomach. Wow. Yeah, no, it hits people. It hits people pretty hard when you realize what they've done. What they've done to destroy this market. Absolutely destroy the market. Oh, hello, Beaky Gamer. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. On the mend from COVID. Hasbro is the reason why Toei can't simulcast Sentai and Kamen Rider on Tokusatsu. But they are, right? Are they doing that? Don't we get a new episode at the same time the Japanese do, or just about the same time? I thought that was the whole point of doing that with Zets. I could be wrong. Why you're suggesting Batman, the Brave and the Bold cartoon is another DC hero is a guest star? I don't know what that means. Or what you're suggesting is like Batman, the Brave and the Bold, where another DC hero is a guest star. Oh, that makes more sense. Well, that's just it, is that like we can't freeze the Power Rangers at Mighty Morphin because that nobody wants that. You can't. What are you gonna do? I mean, like there's only so many adventures you can have with one team, and so it's best to cut them off. Like I said, we got those 2 90-minute movies a year for 3 years, and that establishes them, creates this content that would be restreamable. You want kids to rewatch this. You remember watching children's movies like it was a famous joke for comedians in the early 2000s and late 90s that they were sick of replaying the Barney tapes over and over and over again because the children would rewatch Barney. Well, if you go look at any of the children's YouTube channels that beam out children's content, the majority of their content is stuff that children are just rewatching over and over and over again. It's months old in some cases. There's months between uploads. And the reason is that kids just rewatch that stuff over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, back to back. Put it on loop. Some people have it on at daycares. And this is how you manage to hack that who are we aiming at, is you make sure that this stuff is what adults will want to sit through, so it has some bits and pieces of compelling storyline, and you make sure that the kids that are into Dragon Ball and Ben 10 and Owl House are satisfied with the amount of violence versus the motivations of the villains, so everything lines up nicely. And that's easy. But they won't do that because what it doesn't satisfy is that 5 to 8-year-old demographic that buys toys. And they do. Toy sales are on the rise, finally, after the COVID dead cat bounce was over. But it's not great. It's only up by 6%. So it's not like, woo, we've saved the toy industry. It's nothing. No. But it's up by 6%, which you can't ignore. It's not a 1%. It's not a 5%. It's a 6%, guys. Can't ignore that. A whole 6%. But that's why I recommend that we bring in these 10 years later, have these crossover events between these heroes, and then you allow that to act as the gateway moving on into new heroes, into new Power Ranger series, like completely unique teams. I mean, like I said at the beginning, if China can do this with the Giant Saver series, so can Power Rangers. Power Rangers, in fact, has a really easier time doing that because it spent 33 years building an enormous world to work inside of. And as I've said about DC and Marvel, just strip out the characters and their histories and work inside the world. Build new characters inside that world. They're great worlds. Power Rangers is a very full world. You have KO-35, Onyx, and Andrea and Daria, something like that. You had the Mercurians. There were a whole other race of people. You had Miranoi way out there where Lost Galaxy managed to crash land Terra Venture. And that was the end of the Astro Megaship because the Astro Megaship crashed into the moon of Miranoi. And it was just fucked sideways from that point on. It was useless from there. Turned it into a Denny's or something. I don't know. Space Denny's. But yeah, no, that's that world. And they just refuse to do anything with it. That's the biggest problem with Mighty Morphin is like all these reboots just want to trap it to Angel Grove. As I've done with what I've created here, I'm inserting stuff from way different seasons and stuff like that. So that way you know this whole world is happening right now. It did not begin with Zordon being a head in the tube. That's all. So we have Sentai Ranger Donnie saying, hello, Cider and all. Hope everyone is well, despite the passing of Gunner Frank, those whose late uncle portrayed Dr. Tommy Oliver in the Power Rangers universe. Yes. The Frank family has a bit of problem with staying alive. Quite a few of them have met untimely ends. And it's bitter, really, but we do wish the family the best on that because again, they've suffered a lot. This family is very weighed down by death. And so, I only chuckle because it just keeps happening. Like it's such an unfortunate repeat of events. The tragedy keeps befalling his family. And I can't really reason out why. I don't know anything that Jason David Frank did that would warrant a mummy style curse. You know what I mean? So can only hope that it's just a very unfortunate set of events and it eventually lets up. It gives up, Sentai Ranger Donnie says, I reject the notion that Power Rangers is a dead brand, but one thing is for sure, we will always have Super Sentai. Well, you're right. Power Rangers is pretty donezo. We haven't had a new Power Rangers since 2023. And in kid time, those kids aren't kids, quote unquote, anymore. Since 2023, the age demo has aged out and they've moved on to Dragon Ball. They've moved on to Ben 10. They've moved on to Owl House. They've moved on to other properties that can take the violence seriously, as opposed to trying to pair it with like pies in the face on the other end when it comes to civilian stuff. Again, Power Rangers just suffers from never changing the formula from 1993. The Disney era tried. Like, we talk very highly about SPD around here. SPD is a police drama in a children's show. Sky literally arrests the monster, the alien, that killed his father. We see Officer Tate die in the line of duty in the first episode. Like they pulled no punches. You know what I mean? They took that Y rating right up to the line, that PG rating right up to the line. And, when Neo Saban got a hold of it, they didn't want to do that anymore. They wanted to go back to 1993 and ha ha ho ho, isn't it funny that Power Rangers are Power Rangers? And Ninja Steel was like the climax of that, where they were like, let's put fart jokes in everything. That'd be great. That'll get the kids. They'll want to buy that. They'll want to take the Power Rangers seriously if we keep putting fart jokes in everything. They love fart jokes, those kids. Fart jokes. And Hasbro admittedly had an okay idea with Beast Morphers. They were trying. It was inventive. I think it should have had more to do with RPM, but I guess they didn't want to retread onto Disney's rights or whatever to those characters. Maybe they still have rights to them. I don't know. I know that they have like the characters appearing at the theme park that they own that were featured in the Disney shows. Those characters show up at the theme park, but I can't tell you if that was a reason. But the Grid Battle Network wasn't a bad idea. It just got Hasbro'd because they just got obsessed with trying to rationalize everything, and you just don't do that. That kills the magic when you try to explain everything. Sacramita says if the reboot cost $200 million, yeah, it'll flop harder than 2017. Well, sure. I mean, there's no way it doesn't cost $200 million. Between the Paramount movie that they're putting out and the Disney Plus series that they're putting out, there's no way that that doesn't cost $200 million. Not even, that's going to be way less even combined. You're looking at close to $500 million that these two companies are going to sink into Power Rangers on behalf of Hasbro, expecting something on the other end. No clue. No clue what they're going to do. Sentai Ranger Donnie says, without Super Sentai, we wouldn't have Power Rangers. Well, you're absolutely right. But Hasbro has decided they want to make a homegrown Power Rangers. Now, I don't believe that means they're going to take the Toku out. The secret sauce to all of this is that Power Rangers Super Sentai is tokusatsu. Okay? And that's what makes Super Sentai sort of unique, I guess, in superhero stories, is that it draws from tokusatsu. Now, tokusatsu is more classically understood to being, yes, of course, special effects, but more directly associated with men wearing spandex and some form of armor involved in a sci-fi plot. Sometimes they do kung fu. Sometimes they have metal armor, like the Metal Heroes. Sometimes they turn into giant men that go around fighting giant monsters, like Ultraman. There's quite a few ways to execute what is considered tokusatsu. And that is a man wearing spandex and a helmet, fighting a monster or, contributing to a giant monster conflict in some way or another. And so that's, you can't strip that out of Power Rangers, just like you can't strip that out of Super Sentai. So because Toku is Super Sentai, and because Power Rangers is Super Sentai, Power Rangers is tokusatsu. So you're still going to have the spandex, you're still going to have the armor, you're still going to have the helmet, you're still going to have the giant monsters and the giant robots because those are trappings of tokusatsu. What'll be absent in it is the Japanese culture. That's basically the only thing I can envision Hasbro actually stripping out of the Power Ranger product as you and I know it is the Japanese culture. So we probably won't see another samurai team. We probably won't see another ninja team. But we'll probably see more vehicle teams. We'll probably see more teams that are sort of like an isekai in that they go into a digital realm and conduct their Power Ranger stuff. They do stuff inside of games. Kind of, if you remember Reboot way back in the ye olde days from Mainframe Studios, the 3D production about people living inside of your computer and defending it from viruses. So when it comes down to this, Power Rangers is nothing without Super Sentai because Super Sentai is what gave it its form and function. Every part of the formula of a Power Ranger is based on what a Super Sentai hero is. They cannot separate that. All they can do is pull the Japanese culture out. We might even see less swords. You might see more of an emphasis on guns. I don't know. Because, the production companies are ran by people who are paranoid about weaponry. So who knows? We'll probably see more of an emphasis on magic. That way, they don't have to worry about guns pissing off the moms and oh, you're training my child to be a gun nut. You're going to hand out free NRA memberships with your Power Ranger action figures. I'm sure they're afraid of that. So You might even just see just the Power Rangers being like Harry Potter and they just throw magic at each other. But they're not going to be getting rid of the suits. They can't get rid of the action, obviously. And they can't get rid of the giant robots. They can't get rid of the monsters. So we're going to be seeing those. They'll just probably be a really overbaked version of them, meaning a way overthought version. One of the things that the Japanese have over the Western market is that the Japanese have a lower threshold of believability. Verisimilitude is the term we use here in the United States, particularly. And that is a term that is to describe how close this looks like reality. Can you tell a Batman story where your brain says, okay, Bruce Wayne is a real guy. I can believe that this Nolan Batman, Christopher Nolan style Batman can exist out in the world. That's verisimilitude. Verisimilitude, excuse me, verisimilitude. I don't know who verisimilitude is, but I'm sure she's nice. But verisimilitude is not something the Japanese overtly worry themselves with. Japanese audience members just really enjoy a story most of the time. That's why the live theater productions work very well for them, the live shows, and they don't work at all over here in the United States. They haven't, like, almost immediately as they started doing them back in the day, they stopped them because they just don't. Americans don't interact with media that way. I don't know about the Europeans, but here in the United States, we just don't. We need a lot of like believability in it. That's why the Transformers look so crazy. Is that the studios understand that Americans are not going to come out and watch G1 Transformers beat the shit out of each other because it's just too cartoony. It looks too fake. So they have to design things about the Transformers to apply the sensation of weight, to apply the sensation of trapping the light, to give it a sense of size and that sort of thing. And it's a whole mess of a problem, and you really have to blame it on people who are not invested in the media that they take an interest in. If you like Transformers, you should like Optimus in whatever form he takes, right? You should like him in the G1 form because that's most often how you see him. But no, believe it or not, people would not sit through G1 Optimus racing around high-kicking Megatron in the face. They just wouldn't sit through it. They needed that to look like some weird tinfoil spray-painted monstrosity. They needed Optimus to have a flame paint job to get the average moviegoer in there. Not Transformers fans, just the average moviegoer. It's crazy. But that's what we're stuck with. It's what we're like neck deep in with dealing with this. Sakura Mia says the new MMPR toys isn't there in my town. It's hard to believe that when everything is so expensive. Well, again, like what has come through for Playmates is just the repeat of the ye olde 90s action figure line. Like Playmates may have changed the gizmos a little bit in those automorph toys that they made. Let me see if I can dig up a picture of them. Playmates automorph figure. Hold on. Please hold. So find a picture here. There we go. The beefy Jason. Oh, he's beefy. He's kind of short though. I thought Jason would be taller. Anyway, so you take a look, and this is their big seller. This is what they in the article was talking about was the big seller for Playmates Power Rangers Reignition line was the Automorph Red Ranger was the hottest toy in their line, and that was leading the toy sales right now. And so this is where they get the incentive, guys. This is where they get the incentive. Now, what they don't tell you in those reports is that children's interaction with toys is very, very down. It's not to say that children aren't playing with toys anymore. It's not to say the majority of children are not playing with toys anymore. It's that playtime with toys is down lower than it has ever been. Kids are more engaged with their tablets. They're more engaged with doom scrolling than they are with picking up a doll, an action figure, a role play toy, a frisbee. And that's just where we're at. COVID had a role to play in that, but that's not to say that kids weren't already being shoved in front of a television, shoved in front of a computer, shoved in front of a tablet before COVID hit. It just got worse through there. So that's another hurdle that they're dealing with, and that makes Hasbro, weak on creating a new toy line because they understand the children aren't going to be there. So they have to go and make toys that a 30-year-old, 35-year-old, 40-year-old would pick up to complete a collection or start and complete a collection. I did the research, and it really is disheartening. It breaks my heart to have to bring this news to you about all this, to be the bearer of bad news about how terrible the Power Ranger market is in the United States simply because Hasbro and Saban could not find it in themselves to put their effort behind their latest Red Rangers. They kept falling back on Tyranno Red, and ta-da, that's all the market recognizes now. Shout can only stream the 90s Sentai, but not the Reiwa era Sentai. Okay, so Sentai must be the hoop at the moment. Probably not for too much longer, though. Probably not for too much longer. We have Sagittarius Saya saying, according to Eddie Gazalian, right before he got fired by Disney, he says that Disney strongly hated Power Rangers franchise because of Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. Sure, you can feel the hatred in Overdrive, definitely. They took the head off the Red Ranger. They took his head clean off. You remember that when Mac got his head taken off? They definitely hated Power Rangers. And I can't, the only thing I can figure is that the production teams don't like having to try and match up the footage from Japan. If you remember in Ninja Storm, this was the first one that Disney went out with, and they put a lot of effort behind it. If you remember in Ninja Storm, they were just trying desperately to get any scenes that they could of the characters being up on top of these New Zealand tropical vegetation covered hills that overlook white sand beaches. And this is because there are so frequently those scenes featured in Hurricaneger. These are frequently seen because, again, it's the stoicism of ninjas. And so they're up on mountains and they're soul searching and that sort of thing. So that's why a lot of the footage is for Ninja Storm is shot in all these mountainous locations. And it was just a pain in the ass for them. They hated that. They hated having to match up the footage. And in my mind, you don't have to. You just have to establish that the battle is happening in an extra dimension. And that's it. No problem. You don't have to tell them it's Tokyo, Japan. It's just an extra dimension. That's where the fight's happening. You're done. That's how it happens in one location. It gets started in one location and the fight completes in a different one. But this is where Hasbro is sort of like on their own because Disney had Disney's a television production company, a toy production company, a video game production company, a theme park company, and everything else under the sun company. Hasbro is not. Hasbro makes toys. Hasbro sometimes makes sponsors, rather, the production of movies with their licenses, with their IPs. So they are wildly out of step trying to make this. That's why they turned it over to Disney to make. Now, in modern Disney's hands, I don't think they're going to hate Power Rangers any less, even if they can make their own footage. Because they don't own this, remember? Hasbro owns this. Big mess. Even Kamen Rider deals with mature subjects. Yeah, exactly. And that's the violence in Power Rangers requires a more serious storyline. It's not that you need to have like the Punisher's storyline in the middle of Power Rangers. But like having Sledge come to Earth, and the reason why he is vexing the planet is that he wants to get his hands on the Energems is not good enough. Thanos wanted to get a hold of the Infinity Stones in order to wipe out half of the universe's life because he felt it was just. That warrants the violence you see happening in the Avengers, in those Avengers movies. The threat presented by Thanos warrants the level of violence that's expressed in that production. Sledge just wanting to get his hands on the energems, he's not even explicitly clear about what like his plan to use the energems is. I think it's like halfway through Dino Charge before the second season starts, quote unquote second season before Super Dino Charge starts, that he actually explains that he wants to use them to, I think it's force people to like him or something. It was a very underwhelming reason to have the energems. And he's just been pursuing this for 7 million years or whatever. And it's like, right, okay. And that's the problem, is that like kids who are attracted to the violence end up falling off as soon as the ranger parts are over, because the civilian parts have to go back to that 5 to 8-year-old demographic and be like, wow, that was scary. Let's undercut it with a very childish moment right now. Conrado Javier says, even Disney has moved on with a Korean IP called the Armosaurus. Yeah, we talked about that a couple days ago. Like, it's real loose. Like I was talking about earlier with that verisimilitude thing. Verisimilitude. I don't know why I want to call it verisimilitude. Sorry. Verisimilitude. That one's a tough one. It's an experiment to find out what the audience will tolerate for how heavy or like, rough the CGI is. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if it'll last, but it's a good step in the right direction. Got to do something. Can't lean on Hasbro to try and figure out the tokusatsu problem. I can't even say that Boom Studios is right, Conrado. I can't even say that Boom Studios is right. The biggest problem is that Boom wants to hit everybody over the head with agenda. Like, Shattered Grid is the only story, in my opinion, that the comics have put out that have like any impact. Like, I'm sure there's great stories inside the comics, but from what I've read from the Boom offerings, they're all just sort of like, what if girl power? What if girl power? But what if girl power? And that's all I read about, is how badass Kim is, how awful Rita's life was, and she's not actually a bad person. It was somebody else's fault. And how Rita wasn't a bad person. It was somebody else's fault. And how Astronema is Yes Queen. That's all I hear about in the comics anymore. RJ McReady's talking to Donnie. My bad. Disney bought Marvel as a replacement for Power Rangers? I don't think so. I think they had their eye on expanding into boys products. Because if you don't know, Disney is uniquely a girls brand. Like, Disney may have put out some stuff that boys like, but chiefly the magic and wonder of Disneyland and Disney as a product is mainly geared toward princesses. If you remember, they didn't have much to do with boys' products in the 90s and the early 2000s. They were putting out a lot of princess stuff. Of course, they had their movies that facilitated boys that like that stuff, like Hercules, for instance. I can't imagine girls being too head over heels for most of what happens in Hercules. That's a good example. But what I'm trying to explain is that Disney as a whole is much more dedicated to their female demographic than they are their male demographic. And that's why I think that they wanted to get a hold of Marvel so badly, is that was like a quintessential boy brand that would expand their portfolio into the male demographic that they had been failing to capture because of their overemphasis on princesses and magic. And that's, if you remember, Mystic Force was like a wet dream for them. They went crazy with Mystic Force. Like, Mystic Force and SPD probably got like the most special attention out of all of the Disney productions. Like, there was a whole forest kingdom in Mystic Force. You remember that? There's a whole forest kingdom. It wasn't just people wandering around the trees. There were whole structures out there. There's a half of a castle that they built. They built this massive underground cavern with 3 separate stories just for Malagor, the weird asshole with the exhaust pipe poking out of his head. That asshole to stand in the middle of a big bright light and tell them they were going to take over the world. They never used that set again. That set was never used again. They only built that so they could show all the Mystic Force bad guys in a circular camera shot while Malagor shot his mouth off like an idiot. Malachor, sorry. Malagor was the alien, was the lava guy. Malachor was the guy in Mystic Force that was the initial bad guy that had the exhaust and piston come out of his head. But again, like that's, Disney. Disney obviously wanted to play up their magic thing, but I don't think they got rid of Power Rangers to get a hold of Marvel, and I don't think they were thinking of Power Rangers when they acquired Marvel. What's funny though is that Power Rangers has crossed over enough with Marvel that Marvel does have licensing control over some Power Ranger stories. Not the stuff we saw in the show, not the stuff we saw in the movie, but they do have some control over some of the Power Ranger stories that existed back in the 90s when they were publishing the comics. Marvel got around. They published Zoids too, by the way. Did you know that? Marvel published Zoids for a while. There's a Spider-Man versus the Zoids. It's really surreal, believe me. We have Nerdy Texan Accountant, the member. Make sure that you check out the membership tab down below. Become a member of the Orca crew. Help support the channel here so we can keep chugging on, letting you guys know what's up, what's down, what's left, and what's right. So we have Nerdy Texan Accountant saying, I hate the villains are not evil. Stuff that's been happening a lot now. Like I said, it got started with Maleficent. Maleficent was the first successful villain is the victim story. That when it went really wild and really crazy. And now we have like Wicked, to where we're producing a play that forgot along the way that this is the Wicked Witch lying, by the way. If you don't, I was a stage actor before I got sick, so I did a lot of stage acting, and so I'm familiar with Wicked. I never performed in it. A few friends did. I never was brain dead enough to audition for that. I knew better. And so Wicked is a story about the Wicked Witch of the West telling her side of what happened in the Wizard of Oz story. It is meant to be a lie. It is meant to be her manipulating you, the reader, in a fourth wall manner. She talks about this toward the end of the story. And so the problem is that the one with Cynthia Erivo is playing it straight, that it is the facts, that everybody but the Wicked Witch of the West was evil and she was the only good one. And then Dorothy dropped a fucking house on her sister. Watch out for buckets of water, I guess, right? Disney turned Star Wars into a girl boss brand with Rey, and the MCU is promoting Ironheart and Miss Marvel. Again, Disney's largest consumer demographic is women. They can't get the women to get interested in boy properties. They want to deny the reality of that. Again, this is something you can research right now. I'll dig it up. I think it's boys and girls play with toys differently. Where did that one go? Well, we'll just bring up the Google AI result. It's pulling from a bunch of stories. So, but as you can see, I'll make it bigger so it's not like a Google result for ants. So there you go. So as you can see, yes, boys and girls often play differently, with preferences for gender-typed toys and activities that can reflect societal gender socialization rather than purely innate biological differences. Research shows that boys tend to prefer activities that build technical skills, like mechanical play, with wheeled toys, while girls often favor nurturing play with dolls or activities like art and puzzles that develop relational skills. However, these differences are influenced by environmental factors and stereotypes, and there is evidence of overlap in play that benefits and the benefits of encouraging children to explore a wide range of toys to develop diverse skills. So basically, what that's trying to tell you is that out the womb, boys prefer stories that involve more of the self-becoming. So the boys want to play with a toy where they become Batman. So they will lower their voice when they are pretending to be Batman. I'm Batman and I'm going to get you, Joker. They won't use their real voice because they're becoming Batman. They're assuming the role of Batman and telling a story about Batman with those toys. The girls want to use the toys to socialize with, to rehearse socialization with. So and this is not bad, don't get me wrong, but so their toys and their interactive media is mainly geared toward building those interpersonal relationships that a tea party, that playing house, that playing hopscotch, that playing with an easy bake, that bedazzling, all of these things involve. And that, again, that's not bad. Men and women are different. It's not just how we pee, wouldn't you know? Men and women are different, and that's okay. Inversely, when you take a look at this, boys want more action. They want to be more physically involved in the media. That's why Power Rangers was initially so attractive, and as it started watering down that violence, it started losing kids. Because what made it unique is that you could go from having a moralistic story about how to pick up trash and be a good citizen to exploding a monster with your friends. Having righteous victory over an evil animated garbage pile that was going to hurt people. And so that is an ultimate boy fantasy, is to be the hero realized. For the girl, they will take that Batman action figure and Batman will join their tea party. And he will become part of their socialization, not doing anything Batman-y. He will not be fighting the Joker. He won't even mention the Joker at the tea party. He'll be complimenting everybody's dresses and how wonderfully they look today. There's nothing wrong with that. The girl isn't wrong. The boy isn't wrong. Where the corporation is wrong is trying to force those things to exist in the same space, and they're not going to do it. There's a reason why the majority of people who go to a monster truck rally are dudes, usually burly beer belly dudes. Nothing wrong with that, but they're usually pretty burly. Those fellas, pretty rough around the edges that go to these. It's not pretty princesses. And wouldn't you know it, the people that show up to Tupperware parties, right? People that show up to Taylor Swift concerts, not usually guys who look like they go on Duck Dynasty. They're usually not the fellas that show up to a Taylor Swift concert. They don't look like they belong at a biker bar. They usually look pretty smooth, kind of there with the girlfriend, the daughters, or whatever. That's not really their thing. And if it is their thing, they're there being there to enjoy it. They're not there to, become it like they do at a Metallica concert. It's an entirely different way of experiencing entertainment, escapism, and the corporation wants to erase that. Disney wants to tell you, you don't like Ironheart because you are a bigot and you are a sexist, and that's why you don't like Ironheart, not because it's flatly built for nobody. Ironheart said, let's take girl, but make her act like guy and make her completely insufferable, even to the people in the show. And we're going to expect the audience to love her. Captain Marvel was the same case. We're going to make Captain Marvel even insufferable to the other characters in the movie, and we're going to expect you, the audience, to say, nah, I like that. I like the part where she tortures that random guy because he speaks to her in the wrong tone. He doesn't even say anything evil to her. He just says it's something to her in the wrong tone, and she breaks his finger. Heroes, guys. That's what heroes do. They break people's fingers because of their tone. But that's what you're dealing with now with Disney, with Hasbro, with all of them. They all have this idea that they have to melt the boy experience into the girl experience. Because believe it or not, boys buy more toys than girls do. Girls buy more fashion than boys do. What a surprise. Girls want to buy more clothes than boys. How about that? Isn't that crazy? Who would have ever guessed? Who would have ever guessed that the girls want to do more accessorizing than the boys? And the boys want to have more role play toys so that they can become the hero that they saw on television. Whoa. Whoa, no way, man. This is all brand new news that nobody knew, especially not in fucking preschool when we were just all looking at it right in front of our own damn eyes. But that's the problem with the corporation. They insist that they know better than all of human history, and they're going to teach us all a lesson. Believe it or not, they're going to teach us all a lesson. And it's going to start with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is the timeline we all live in now, by the way. This is the timeline that we all live in. So, do you remember when Tommy's helmet had the silver crest? I miss that. I thought that was a nice touch. It broke up the helmet really nice. I know people like the solid green helmet, but I like the silver crest, dragon nose cresty thing. I always thought that was a neat addition that Disney added in there. That was a good idea. But yeah, you're right. It's like Mrs. Was like your Mrs. Nesbit. It's like the Mrs. Nesbit thing. It's exactly like that when they were Sid's sister. Sid's sister wanted to use Woody and Buzz to have a tea party, and Sid wanted to cut their limbs off and glue them to other toys. It's boys have a very different relationship with this type of escapism. So, and again, like I said, it's not universal. I didn't tell you that it's uniform that every boy and girl is the same, but tomboys, of course, take an interest in Power Rangers. My best friend grew up loving Power Rangers. That's a lady. She's really into it. She enjoys it. I think her wife tolerates her interest in Power Rangers and Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, but she tolerates it well. And that's fine, you know, but I'm telling you that you can't aim the brand at both men and women. It's not going to work. Women will be attracted to it, like you'll find women at monster truck rallies and drag races and things like that. It's not because they're there with their husbands. Some of them do genuinely enjoy watching a truck smash a bunch of cars and watch a car go down a straight line very fast. Some of them like that. That's fine. But we don't aim drag races at women to get them to show up. We don't aim monster truck rallies at women to get them to show up. We aim them at men because those guys are going to show up. So we aim them at them. And that's why Power Rangers needs to be aimed at dudes. You ever notice how none of the girls don't get battleizers? You ever notice how they don't get special equipment? It's because the boys don't want to become a girl. So making those toys for boys to play with just doesn't interest them. So that's why you see the girl figures only getting like the standard release, because all they're really made for is to complete a team display for a collector. The boys don't typically want anything to do with the, you know, in this example for Mighty Morphin, Yellow and Pink Ranger. That's how it goes. Wish fulfillment, certainly. I'd love to see more stuff happen with the girls because it just looks fun. It looks cool. I liked Xena, Warrior Princess, and Buffy growing up, so I don't have a problem with women kicking ass. I perfectly think they're capable of it. It's just boys tend to not want to play with toys that take a female form unless that female character is being rescued. So that's that. But like I said, it's not anything against the tomboys or the dandy men that are on the other side of that take an interest in girl things. It's sort of like how Winx never made an attempt to try and hold a male demographic. It's sort of like how Monster High never tried to hold a male demographic. Power Rangers needs to make sure that it isn't trying to hold a female demographic. It doesn't have to. There are enough boys in the world, believe it or not. That doesn't seem like it, but there are. And again, this works much better if they make a production of like 2 90-minute movies a year, and you can make a video game that goes in between all of that that corresponds with that stuff. When a new movie comes out, there's new skins. Simple. But they don't want to do that because it's not toys, and toys are a lot easier, as I said, to make and maintain. They are, a bit, more of a pain in the ass. But once you get that initial stamp done, that mold done for the action figure, you can go anywhere. You can just keep stamping them out forever. The video game will eventually look dated. The technology will need to be updated. The coding will break. people will hack it, that sort of thing. So it's a way bigger headache for a toy company to try and manage a video game series. And so they don't want to do that. They want to try and recapture that 5 to 8 year old market that has firmly moved into Paw Patrol, Blazing the Monster Machines, and non-violent escapism. And they just can't do it. Because you lose everything about Power Rangers when you take the violence out of it, you know? I hope the Saudis buy Hasbro. They're buying everything. So obviously that's the next stop, that's the next one on the docket. Don't worry. Buffy and Xena weren't Mary Sue, so they were good characters. Sure, I mean, arguably Buffy was a Mary Sue because she just woke up with that power one day. But I guess the way that she communicated it is that she wasn't always superior. She still had to be trained by Giles. She still had to adjust to new magic items and things like that. Whereas Rey just picked up a lightsaber and became a god by whacking it against a rock. I don't know. It's quite bizarre how like swinging a lightsaber around and having Luke tickle your cheek made you better than the greatest a Jedi turned Sith that was raised from birth to command the Force and use a lightsaber. It's pretty crazy. Sailor Moon was was Power Rangers for girls, for God's sakes, and Power Rangers can't catch a break. Again, like Sailor Moon was Power Rangers for girls. Same with Pretty Cure. But the problem is that girls don't interact with violence. They don't solve their conflicts with violence very often. You see TikTok videos of women beating the shit out of each other, but that's not usually how they resolve their conflicts. They usually play a bunch of mind games until one of them fucks off forever. And that's how they do it. It's just that's why palace intrigue and in the Game of Thrones is so addictive for the female viewers, is because that's, primarily how they go about conflict resolution, is the palace intrigue. And so, Sailor Moon didn't have a lot of that. Sailor Moon had the Toku formula where teenagers were trying to live their lives. They're interrupted by some asshole trying to do something terrible to the world. And women typically aren't attracted to conflict resolution through violence. There are tomboys, obviously, but that's why Sailor Moon had such a hard time getting off the ground here, and why it's kind of been one of those cult classics here in the United States, is because more often than not, the men like the Sailor Moon, like myself, Spencer, and others, like Sailor Moon's property, whereas like our girlfriends were just sort of like, this is weird. Why are they naked? Why are their skirts so short? This makes me really uncomfortable where they're spinning around and I can't see their panties, but I feel like I'm supposed to see their panties. And so that's, these are all comments I heard from my fiancés and girlfriends over the years as I was introducing them to the various interests that I have. They couldn't wrap their head around why I liked Power Rangers. They didn't see that it was just regular people laying down their lives in order to protect the world that they love. The robots are great. The suits are great. The helmets are great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything but this stuff doesn't matter. I'm just saying the core value of the Power Rangers that stayed with me, what made it so important and why it is so important to me, is that it's the story of regular people. Most of the time, you have characters like in SPD that had like genetic superpowers built into them. Just regular people agreeing to lay down their lives to protect the world that they love. And in a world where we have like billionaires that become bat-themed superheroes, we have men from outer space that have the powers of gods. When you have Iron Man building his weapons of war that he turns into weapons of salvation, that sort of thing. An average person, just a dude with no military experience, no real super great training, maybe just a passing fancy in martial arts, picks up a morpher and then becomes the avatar of justice. a living embodiment of what is righteous in this world. All it takes is the willingness to do something when other people won't. And that's Power Rangers. That's why it's important to me, because it tells that story better than any other franchise I've ever seen. Superman, Batman, Green Arrow, Hawkeye, any of them. The Avengers, the Justice League, any of the heroes you want to name, Power Rangers tells the story of regular people taking the risk of almost dying in order to keep the people and the world that they love safe. It gets campy at times, certainly. It should. It's a children's show. We don't want it to get all grim and weird. Adi Shankar tried that, and it was god-awful. But that's what I'm trying to get at, is that message is completely lost in modern Power Rangers. When was the last time they put an emphasis on just regular people? They didn't do that. They are regular people, but they all have like, oh, this is a special ninja clan. This is a special samurai clan. This is a special group of people who are destined to always pick this power up. No. The fundamental thing, like Lightspeed Rescue is one of the best examples for this. I love Lightspeed Rescue because it takes the core theory of what a Power Ranger is and the purpose of a Power Ranger and cranks it up to 11. They're rescue workers that have to fight monsters in order to keep people safe. Like, that's the raw interpretation of what a Power Ranger is. You put yourself in the line of danger so that others do not have to. And all of them were selected based on their talent, not predestiny, not their superpowers, not because they had belonged to a particular clan, but because they had demonstrated the aptitude and attitude necessary to save and preserve human life. I'm getting misty-eyed talking about it because I love that quality about Power Rangers, and I've never seen a franchise handle it as well. For all their bumps and bruises in the early Saban era and even in the Neo Saban era, no, they didn't really do it in the Neo Saban era. They had a good opportunity with Megaforce, and they just never crossed that line. They were just always like, it's really neat how you guys just randomly got these powers, because that show was just, I don't know. They didn't know what to do with it. It was another example of, what the fuck is this? Why are they doing all this crazy stuff? We can't call them angels. And then the pirates came, and they didn't know what to do after that. Sakuramita says, sadly, Pretty Cure and Sailor Moon brought more attention than Power Rangers. Nobody talk about the Power Rangers when I hang out in public. Most people are trained to feel ashamed of talking about the Power Rangers. Because, again, Hasbro leaned so hard, not Hasbro, Saban leaned so hard into that PSA at the end story writing. People feel like saying that people feel like having any positive opinion of Power Rangers is like having a positive opinion of Barney. They fear being accused of being childish and immature if they even bring up Power Rangers, if they even mention that they liked the green, white, red, or any other color Ranger. And that's why you don't hear about it in public. They'll talk about Sailor Moon because Sailor Moon's an anime, and anime is cool to talk about. Even the really weird anime is really cool to talk about because people didn't hear about it, didn't know about it, and maybe didn't know that Sailor Moon did that one time. But when it comes to Power Rangers, people hold their breath and they go, well, I probably shouldn't tell everybody that I know anything about Power Rangers because they're going to think I'm weird. Because Power Rangers is for babies, and knowing things about Power Rangers means you're weird. So they go, I don't know much about Power Rangers. It wasn't my thing. One of the litmus tests I had for dating women was that if on my first date, I would ask them if they watched Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and which one they liked better. If they answered no, they didn't watch either one, we didn't date anymore. And if they answered Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we didn't date anymore. I know where this leads. I know where it leads. It's the women that they're going to sit there and be like, this is stupid. This is dumb. And I don't want to deal with that. If you don't want to be enchanted by the magic of dudes running around in spandex and helmets doing kung fu, beating the shit out of another guy dressed in a rubber suit, if you don't want to be enchanted by that, get out of my life. I don't have time for you. I have so many other stressors in my life. I don't have time for you if you don't want to be enchanted by that. I recommend it. Power Rangers is a great filter for getting rid of like crazy bitches. Absolutely crazy bitches. We have Masakula saying, because people are more degenerate and have no morals, that's why certain things get more popular. It's the erosion of a foundation replacing subjectivism and relativism. And I don't deny that, but the reality is that those naughty things were made taboos for so long. People have like an innate interest in them because they were told they're taboo. And so it's A, new to them because they had been a good boy or good girl and avoided that topic. And B, it is scandalous. You are now not a good boy or good girl, having involved yourself in that media and indulged and liked it even more. So it becomes scandalous. Like, ooh, I'm misbehaving by liking this. Ooh, I've been misbehaving by talking about the blowjob in the middle of Game of Thrones or whatever that show was that had it. Ooh, you know, and that's where this comes from. So you're right. Folks are becoming more loose with their morality, and that causes an interest in shows like, Game of Thrones, where a central topic to the show is a dude gets his dick cut off. So, um, that's where you're kind of like stuck, though. And that's why Power Rangers, as I said, is a unique property because it's able to take that level of violence that you see in stuff like Dragon Ball Z and Ben 10 and pair it with a story of people sacrificing themselves to protect their world. So, and it's not that those don't happen in those shows, but you just don't see it with real people anymore. The heroes we're exposed to are all like gray area heroes. They have flaws. They're just like us, guys. They're just like us. And I don't know about you, but I don't want a superhero cider. I don't need that. I made him already. I made Rescue Soldier Cider Max already. I already did that. You guys don't need to. And that's the problem is that Hollywood wants to be like, hey, this guy's a fuck up just like you are. Look at how fucked up his life is. He's just like you. It's insulting. It really is. It's insulting to be told that, the heroes you look up to, like Superman having all these weird quandaries. Just as a sidetrack, I just want to bring up that Superman movie, right? So Superman walks into Lex Luthor's office, hurls a desk across the room over a dog. Over a dog. It's not even his dog. It's his cousin's dog that he's apparently watching while she goes get space drunk. Okay? What's he going to do when Lex hurts a kid? Lex does that. Lex hurts kids a lot. Where the hell do you think Superboy came from? Wasn't like every character before Connell, every experiment before him was a really good job. There was only a one and done. There were many misfires that were dealt with in the Luthor way. Okay? We saw in Young Justice Match, the character that had an extreme psychopathy going on because of what was done to him to create a Superman clone. So what does Superman do about that now? If he doesn't act in a more extreme manner, then we now understand Superman caring more about dogs than people, than children. And we can't have that. But if he goes any more extreme, he has to melt Lex's face off. And that's just been the biggest problem I have with that whole movie is how Superman's escalation of response is way the fuck out of whack. But that's what you're dealing with. Are superheroes now, because a Superman that is written with the intent of the character would not do that because Superman understands, quote, I live in a world of cardboard. One wrong move and somebody dies, unquote. Okay? Power Rangers suffers from the same thing, trying to rationalize the character. Masakula goes on to say, and most media, especially anime, promotes those ideas through worldview, warfare. Truth becomes suggestive, right and wrong become relative, and thus we have the world we have now. I don't know particularly about that one. A lot of the shonen anime that comes to the United States is very much this guy is clearly evil and bad and wrong, and this guy is clearly good and right. So My Hero Academia is the one that plays with that one a lot, but it's a central story to that whole plot that heroes become heroes not for great reasons. I think it's an important story to tell in a world where we have a bunch of influencers trying to tell people how to live their lives. I think that's a good I think that's ultimately the story to take away from My Hero Academia is that you have to be your own hero. You can't let an All Might lead you because he might not know the way. That's a good one. It shouldn't be universal. That should not be universal at all. Of course, Dragon Ball has a central figure that doesn't spend a lot of time with his family, doesn't really spend a lot of time with society, and mostly invests himself on testing his own strength, not truly pursuing a righteous cause, but mostly just chasing adventure to find out if he can get his ass kicked hard or kick ass hard on his own. So it is. You're right. Those heroes are very counter to our classic European based heroes like the cowboy, who is very much invested in arriving in a town where a bad man has done bad things to that town. And the good guy, the good gunslinger, who is clearly good and clearly motivated by good, solves the problem. Whereas even in Seven Samurai, the end of it, the Seven Samurai um, do not feel that they have won anything. Their men have died and the farmers are free. So what did this samurai accomplish? Only a moral victory and nothing more. And so that's a very difficult heroism to follow. In Japan, heroism is mostly framed around self-sacrifice. The reasons for that self-sacrifice, though, unlike American entertainment, are pretty vast. Usually, the self-sacrifice for American entertainment is this impending doom is happening. I'm going to get in front of it. With Japan, the character from the outset, from the very first decision to act in a heroic manner, declares that they will surrender their lives in pursuit of the preservation of innocence, if you will. American media, the character sort of stumbles through that and then has one defining moment at the end that clarifies all that for us, which, has its problems. It's hard to do character progression when only the last 10 minutes of what you're looking at actually matters to that character's progression. It's like how Thor was just sort of aimless. I fell asleep in Thor 2 because Thor was a character that was like, we don't know what to do with him. If we solve his problem, he's no longer an interesting character. But if we keep making him a bumbling idiot that fucks up his own life over and over again, no one's going to believe he's a hero and he just keeps stumbling into heroic acts. So that's why Ragnarok stood out to me, because it was Thor finally stepping up and being like, no. I want to be a hero. I want to be the good guy, like clear cut. Everybody's going to write my name down in history, good guy. That's why I liked Ragnarok, because it was Thor trying to actually be a hero as opposed to just be like, no, that sounds good. We'll just kick that guy's ass. I like that. We'll just go there. I don't care why. Point me in a direction. I'll kill him. And that's because before that was Thor's kind of thing, is he was just like, I'm the guy that does the chopping. I'm the hammer guy. Point me in a direction you need hammering hammered. Nerdy Texan Accountant says, I can't believe they didn't believe in the pirates would do well. It's not that they didn't believe in it. Hasbro, Saban, the Power Rangers brand itself, even as back to Disney, has rules where they cannot depict the Rangers as criminals. And pirates, by the way, are criminals. That's kind of the definition of piracy. So they couldn't do that. They couldn't figure out how to negotiate that. My solution was to turn them into rebels and make that flag a rebellious symbol, because it's not directly a symbol of piracy, alone, because it's not the crossbones and skull. It is implied to be that. And so my solution for that was to turn them into rebels called the Star Strikers. And so they had a pirate motif, and that's because they used to be pirates and they gave it up to be heroes, sort of like what happened with the Go-Kaisers, even though they kind of went back to pirating, like with Marvelous and how he showed up when Zoosier, I think that's the one it was, the one that looked like Minecraft. That one. Um, he showed up in that one. He was trying to steal the whale, the whale power up thing. I forget the name of it now. I'm sorry. He was trying to steal that, and he was still acting in a piratous manner. And you can't have that. And the Power Rangers branding rules say that you can't portray them as criminals, which is why we never got Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger, because Simon Bennett and the rest of the Power Ranger showrunner team couldn't figure out how to negotiate Power Rangers who are thieves into any other concept. I showed you before the Power Rangers Victory Police versus the Power Rangers Super Police. And that allowed for the conversation of this group of police solves the problem without rules. This other group of police has to follow the rules. Duh. That seemed pretty obvious, but they couldn't commit to it apparently. So that was the end of that. But that's the stumbling point with a lot of these, is that in Japan, morality, as described by Masakula, is that morality is based in the intent of the act, not the act itself. So a hero can still be someone who is acting in a villainous manner. It's sort of like Code Geass with Lelouch. Lelouch is the son of the King of Britannia, and the King of Britannia is basically taking over the world. The Empire of Britannia has taken over Japan, robbed it of its culture, and reduced its people to not even being called Japanese anymore. I think they're just called Twos or something like that, from Sector 2 or whatever. And they have it's kind of like 1984, but with giant robots at the same time. And so, which is cool. So Lelouch's role is to overturn that oppressive world, but in order to do that, he has to portray himself as a villain, because the Empire isn't globally a power that can be resisted at the moment. And so in order to build a rebellion, Lelouch becomes the villain Zero. Now, for Power Rangers, you can't do that, because Zero goes out and commits criminal acts. You know, people get hurt by the Black Knights. That happens. They may have been Imperial agents, but to the average, street goer, they don't know that. They don't know that these Imperial people are doing terrible, awful things. They only know that the Empire itself is oppressing them. That's all they know. So Lelouch going out and creating all this chaos and destruction is negative. That's bad. And so Power Rangers would never allow Lupin Rangers or any other Power Ranger team, Sentai team, that is not forthright with the law. And that's why the pirate thing didn't come through, and why they tried so desperately to not acknowledge that they ride around on a giant fucking pirate ship. They have pirate things all over the place. They literally have pirate styling. They are literally carrying stylized cutlasses. They did everything they could to avoid that. I don't know why they bothered adapting Gokaiger at all, if that was their fear. I think they were just kind of stuck. They had to do something. Well, I've watched Kamen Rider Black Sun. I liked Kamen Rider Black to begin with. I discovered that when I was 12 or 13, way back when, back when you could get that stuff on LimeWire, Morpheus, way back then. Kazaa, if you remember that. But Kamen Rider Black Sun is great. I really enjoyed it. I didn't so much like the villain, the human villain, just being Minato Abe, Shinzo's father. I didn't really like that. That was kind of shallow, in my opinion. But I guess that was Amazon's influence, because they paid to have that made. So that was Amazon's agreement, is that they had to take some shot at a conservative political figure. It just felt so out of place. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he evil? And then he started just doing what Minato Abe was doing in the time he was in office. And I was like, oh, son of a bitch. This is just Minato Abe, but eviler, I guess. I don't know. Guy wasn't evil to begin with. He just was controversial because he, again, was a conservative. He wanted to hold on to Japanese tradition in a time when it was being abandoned. Hollywood is why superhero fatigue was made, to hide the agenda. That's why Japan never has that. Exactly. That's why My Hero Academia isn't the problem, even though it does everything the MCU should be doing. There should be a Spider-Man story about Spider-Man being an apprentice and learning from Captain America. That should be absolutely what the comics do with that, but they won't, because that's not what they want to do. They want to make sure that Peter Parker is being cucked, that he is being the girl he loves is being fucked by another man. That's what they want to make sure that's happening with the comics, and Peter Parker, that he's just a miserable son of a bitch. You can't have a hero in the West unless his life sucks or he's fucking it up. You ever notice that? Even Superman is having a hard time keeping things on the down low with Lois Lane. Like, he starts yelling at her and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's, again, like, it's a feature of the West that there are no heroes. Everybody's flawed. And that's wrong. Don't do that. You create aspiration. It's fiction for a reason. Create an aspirational hero. They should be the standard. The outlier should be the hero that's like us, the anti-hero. The guy that's flawed, the guy that makes mistakes. Heroes, as in our fiction, shouldn't. We should aspire to be like our heroes, not our heroes aspiring to be like us. This is why I didn't like Marvel comics when I was growing up. I didn't hate them. I just didn't get into them because the heroes were always crying about their interpersonal problems. And I just can't care. I'm sorry, Thor. You're having a hard time with your girlfriend or whatever is going on there. I feel real bad for you. So sorry. You don't have your powers right now, though. And that's really important that you have those powers. Could you just maybe care about that a little bit more than what's going on with your ambulance driver girlfriend? Maybe? Who cares? Spider-Man, could you just maybe get your act together and, stop whining and crying about who Mary Jane is having sex with? No? Okay, that's fine. And they wonder why manga's kicking their ass left and right, upside down and backward. They can't figure it out. They can't figure out why manga is doing a hell of a better job and taking over the world from American comics, because American comics just want to sit around and cry and blat about things that have nothing to do with being a superhero, because the writers and creative teams behind that have no sense of heroism. The most compelling stories they can come up with are two people talking on a phone about a bad date. So we have Sagittarius saying they can't adapt Tokuger because kids hate trains. I think Chris Cox came out in Hasbro and said that the reason why they didn't adapt Tokuger is because it looked too much like Fisher Price, and that was their competitor. So you got to remember, when they're making these things, is that when they go out to make this stuff, they got to make a toy line behind it. And so a bunch of Power Ranger trains that are all different colors and do different things, well, that seems an awful lot like Thomas and Friends. And so they didn't want to get neck deep in that brand confusion legal argument on that one. And Fisher Price puts out a lot of different toy brands as well. There's a couple other ones about trains that are like living and go out and do things. They go on adventures that aren't Thomas. There's a couple other ones out there. And Tokuger coming over to the United States would have done the same thing. It would have caused a brand confusion issue. And for Hasbro, they're not interested in giving Power Rangers that kind of airtime, I guess, that kind of protection. Because I brought it over, I adapted it as the Dreamline Defenders. That they were people who were created in dreams. They've never existed in real life. They were created in dreams, and their job is to protect the dreams of others. And the dream line is where dreams, like collective dreams that you and I would have together and remember, travel. So they're the most important dreams. And those dreams are being taken over by the Shadonics. That's right. I call them Shadonics. And the Shadonics group. And they want to take over dreams so that they can reprogram people to obey them in real life. And so when we see them, they take on a nightmare form. But in real life, they don't look like that. So all the monsters you see in Tokuger, they don't look like that when they're not dreaming. They look like regular people. And so that's how I got around having to have all the suits sent over, all that stuff. You could just film all the American shit and then just say every action piece that involves these crazy monsters and the guys running around with the top hats and neato suits, those guys are all happening in a dream world. That way you can have an instant shift, to from like regular life into a battle scenario. Yeah. And you're right, Conrado. I'm not saying that like we had the same idea or anything like that, but I put out Dreamline Defenders about, I don't know, a month ago. I didn't know that Zetz was fighting in dreams and stuff like that. I only knew he was in the dark. So all we knew was like, don't lose your dream. That was the thing. So I didn't know it took place in Dream World. And so my solution for that though was like try to make sense of all the crazy stuff, the random crazy stuff that happens inside of Tokuger, because there's a lot of really out off the wall stuff. For Super Sentai, there's a lot of off the wall stuff that happens because of the power of imagination. So we have to explain that in order to make use of that footage, which is pretty prevalent in Tokuger. So, ta-da, they're in a dream. That way, all the crazy stuff can happen. The puppets can happen. The machines combining in different ways. Like that one time that Tokyo Red um, combined all of the trains together in that one really dramatic like game of chicken where they were driving at each other and then missed. So stuff like that would happen in a dream. And that made sense to me as to why I did that. So that, again, like I didn't know that Zetz was going to be set in the dream world, so I'm not gonna say one way or the other about that. I don't. It wasn't a thing on my mind. I was just trying to figure out like there's a bunch of weird Japanese statues that fall on the bad guys. The bad guys obey like imaginary train lines. So I need to come up with a reason why this is happening while the conflict is still broiling to a point where people feel threatened. So Sakuramita says, for my Tokuger adaptation, setting takes place in UK because, Harry Potter. Sure. Magic is another way to explain all the crazy stuff that happens in Tokuger. Hasbro just didn't want to try and make it a unique property. That was the hardest thing. They just didn't want to put the effort behind it. I think these companies just get annoyed because it's a previous existing property. I don't think it has anything to do with the Japanese. It's just that it is a previous existing property that they have to make work for them, and they don't want to do that. They want to own every part of it so that way they can change or ignore every part of it. So, because I can imagine that a lot of collectors got mad at them when they didn't bring over the Q Ranger toys. I can imagine they caught a lot of hell for that. I can imagine they caught a lot of hell for not completing a bunch of Lightning collections. So, yeah, they didn't want to spend the money on trying to adapt something that kind of mirrored Harry Potter with the use of magic trains. They didn't want to do anything with the dream world. They just want to get rid of it. Do it over. We were just talking here for a little while about what happened with Toei confirming that they are not involved in the reboot of Disney's Power Rangers. This is Disney through Hasbro. Hasbro's given to Disney Plus the right to make a reboot. And that was the news, is that Toei officially confirms that they are not consulting. They don't have anything to do with the designs. They're not present with this reboot whatsoever. Yeah, I think I caught that up. Unless you want to know what happens in Dreamline Defenders. I mean, that's different, but, if you're asking about that, that's fine. I could tell you about that one. But that was my solution, and I'm still trying to work out the Dawn Brothers because I don't want to turn it into like just a basic isekai. I already did that with Zerosier. I turned that into an isekai. I don't want to repeat that for Dawn Brothers, but it's hard. It's hard not to because it's all right there to do it. I just want to add a unique twist to it. I'm trying to make it work to where they're moderators in an immersive video game. So it comes up against isekai, but they don't ever get like trapped in the world, And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it like, that's why they're so expressive. That's why they're so weird. And then when they meet in real life, they don't look or behave anything like their avatars. So it kind of speaks to that whole, I have power when I am the avatar, right? Because that's what Avataro Sentai is about. And so that's what I'm trying to do is build into this that there are just regular people who become empowered to protect their digital realm of their favor, and they are avatars of those protectors. But it's rocky, as you can tell. It's rough, and I don't know um what I'm really trying to ground with it yet. Like I said, Dawn Brothers is a very difficult nut to crack, and it's not just because it's Journey of the West. It's, there's a lot of problems trying to bring it over to a serious story. And you don't need to like turn it into like MCU serious or DCU serious. That's not what I'm talking about. Um, Serious is in like for Power Rangers, they tend not to lead into the cultural comedy that is in Dawn Brothers. So I have to wring that out and explain it in a more serious manner so that if it ever was adapted, which it won't be, don't get me wrong, but I try to do these adaptations when I create this stuff so that it speaks to how the Power Rangers brand would adapt it. It's not wish fulfillment. Believe me, these concepts would be wildly different if it was wish fulfillment. I'm trying to fit inside of the Power Ranger branding, what can be done with toys, and how to make this appeal to 8 to 14-year-olds because I don't believe in the 5 to 8-year-old demographic. So, uh, Starlad says, good, now Toei can focus on localizing Sentai like Zets, and that's most likely what's going to happen. Sakura Mita says, just do Journey to the West. And that, again, like I feel like that doesn't really communicate well to a Western audience. As much as we see materials like Dragon Ball Z and so many others that do take like heavy inspiration from Son Goku's story, it really doesn't, it's not something people recognize. It's difficult to communicate, especially with Son Goku's attitude. You know, the reason why people like Goku is that he was like a Superman character when it first started getting adapted here in the US, when they first started doing the dubbing, is they, rather than making Goku like this guy that just wanted to fight all the time, they kept trying to write new lines for him that made him like stoic, and he was resisting the Saiyans to protect his world and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, in the Japanese version, he's just a hick that wants to find out if he's strong enough to beat the ass off his brother or not. And that's the difference I'm talking about, is that Don Momotaro is a psychopath by any American entertainment definition. And so that has to be contextualized somehow, and people just don't know Story to the West. A Journey to the West, sorry. So, believe it or not, Black Myth Wukong didn't really become a big thing here in the United States. The Japanese and Chinese and Koreans bought up most of that. So, and that's all. It's just not something that's well trafficked. It's sort of like how the Greek gods are everywhere, but the Chinese gods are not. The Indian gods are not. The Japanese gods are not. The various Confucian philosophers are not anywhere. Confucian era philosophers are not anywhere, but the Roman and Greek era philosophers are everywhere. It's people understand the Hercules myth in and out and backwards. They don't understand Son Goku, and getting them through the gate on like all the qualifiers to make you understand that Son Goku isn't the bad guy and all of that is a lot. There's a lot of like front loading you got to do to explain, no, he's not the menace here. Believe it or not, he's not the bad guy. A lot of pre-qualifiers. Starlight says the problem of Power Rangers as a franchise is trying to be too serious. I think the problem is that they're trying too hard to contextualize what a Power Ranger is. I don't know about serious, because like it's already pretty childish. It's already pretty childish, and it goes in the wrong direction of wonder and whimsy. It wants to do slapstick comedy. It wants to do these just bizarre things that like key jangling styles of entertainment to keep babies entertained. Meanwhile, the violence is up there with Dragon Ball Z and Ben 10 and Owl House. So it's not, you can't necessarily say that it's too serious, because it's really not. Ninja Steel was all about like had a bunch of fart jokes in it all the time. Mick, the mechanic there, is just a walking sideshow character. Comedic relief. He's hell and gone from that. He's his own joke. Annoying character. Of course, Dino Fury, they absolutely didn't take it seriously. They just decided that they were going to make all of it a callback. Remember this, remember that, remember this. Here's a clip of that. Here's a clip of this. Here's a clip of that. Remember this? Lord Zed's back. So that they didn't take it seriously. They couldn't even be bothered to write their own lore. The most serious thing that they did was they made Zato Jesus. I'm still at a loss as to how they were like, yeah, let's just make Space Jesus. Let's make Power Ranger Jesus. That's what we need to do. That's the best way to end all of this, is to make Power Ranger Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, but he gets like super tuckered out from using his Power Ranger Jesus powers, so he has to take a nappy pappy between all the Power Ranger Jesusing. And I'm over that. I am way, way over that. So I believe that they should be more serious in what they're trying to accomplish with the story. Not like the gritty, dark DC stuff, but it should be more on par with like Vilgax from Ben 10. It should be more on par with Frieza, Cell. Not so much Majin Buu. Majin Buu is just a mindless monster. He didn't really have a motivation. Moro is another one that's a good villain archetype to borrow from. Jiren's not a villain. He's just a guy that Goku had to fight. That's not a villain. An asshole for sure, but not a villain. And that's what I'm getting at, is that like Power Rangers pulls its punches in the wrong spots because it has to conform to that 5 to 8-year-old demo. And that's why this reboot needs to step up and say, no, we're going to move into the more stable market space of 8 to 14-year-olds, and we're going to appeal to them. But that's one of the situations that like Power Rangers keeps finding itself in because of that level of violence, and they can't match it with with like the civilian stuff because they'll lose that 5 to 8-year-old rating. So we have Nerdy Texan Accountant saying, do you think since Hasbro is not going to use Sentai footage anymore, then Toei could negotiate to get the international rights because Sentai to release Sentai without Hasbro's interference? Where they're not using the same suits anymore, the only thing that comes down to is brand confusion. When I was developing the Rescue Soldiers, that's my version of all of this, my tokusatsu. When I was coming up with the Rescue Soldiers, one of the things I kept running into was the term brand confusion. So what Power Rangers owns control of, they own a wrist-mounted device called a morpher. You can have a wrist-mounted transformation device. You cannot call it a morpher. They have control over terms like the morphin grid. They have control over terms like Zord, things like that. They do not have control over man with helmet in spandex. They don't have that. They don't have man with helmet in spandex and friends wearing different colors either. They only control the things that are like super duper Power Rangery, defensible things. However, they lean very heavily on the term brand confusion. And brand confusion is when Super Sentai shows up on your doorstep and Power Rangers is already in the house. What do you do? Who do you bring in? Who's the real Power Rangers? And that's where they would run into a problem, is that no matter the Sentai footage or not, man with helmet doing kung fu while wearing spandex with giant robots and presumably hot music behind it, that's something that people in the United States equate with Power Rangers. And so Hasbro has a legal defense to come out and say, hey, Toei, that's our thing here. Go home. And they do have a legal complaint about that because brand confusion would happen due to Sentai being the origin of Power Rangers. So 33 years worth of Power Rangers is going to look like Super Sentai, and only the most recent team is not going to look like Super Sentai. So that's, as much as we would like Toei to just come in and wreck house here, they're going to anyway. It's just going to take time. And honestly, where Power Rangers hasn't been in the market in the US, I think they're going to like pirouette out of the success of simul-streaming Zets, and they're going to simul-stream Super Sentai. I have a feeling that streaming law works a bit differently than broadcast law. I have a feeling. I'm not sure because I just haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty of how the United States treats international restreams or simul-streams even. But I believe that streaming law is different than broadcast law. Because you can do wildly different things on a YouTube stream than you can do with like a television broadcast, even your own local TV station stuff, you know? Conrado says Hasbro or Saban are the reason why Power Rangers. No, they both are. They both are. Neo Saban and Hasbro just kick the shit out of the brand. Absolutely, just kick the shit out of it. So, isn't Chi Red Jesus too? So in Q Ranger, Lucky with the Orion powers does have a great amount of ability, but in Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, Zato raises the dead. Zato transforms the little mushroom fungus creature person from a human back into a monster because they didn't like their human body because they were an icky girl. And who would want to be an icky, weak girl, right? You want to be a they-them mushroom monster because it's cool and it's way better than being a lame old girl. I hate that so much. I hate it with a passion. Meanwhile, he's resetting time, healing wounds, all that stuff. So, yeah, very different than how Lucky manifested the Orion abilities there. Because Zato was quite literally acting as Jesus Christ in the Power Rangers. He had a staff that did magic, all this crazy stuff. He came back from the dead too. He rose from the dead as well. So he's a Christ-like figure. And that's he was resurrected by a tree. I'll never understand that one. I don't know where Simon got the idea to have Zato resurrected by a mild-mannered tree god, but that happened. Still trying to figure that one out. We have I Am in Pain saying, I hate when Power Rangers just want to be entertaining without trying. I don't even think they want to be entertaining. They're just trying to get paid. Like you go back and you look at Dino Fury and you look at Cosmic Fury, like the actors may have cared, but that seemed to be where it stopped. Everybody else was just like, yeah, great. Helmet, spandex, whatever. Just pay me. Leave me alone. We have Conrado Javier saying, Zato, the Zenith Ranger, is like a stand-in for Tommy in Cosmic Fury. I guess, but they were still trying to make Zato a god. And even then, they ended up making him a Morphin Master, the only Morphin Master to show his face, by the way. So, still trying to figure that one out. Zato, by the way, the one that released the Sporex onto the universe, Morphin Masters were like, yeah, no, you're cool. Become part of our group. Not your friend, Aeon, that spent 65 million years at the bottom of a lake because the Morphin Masters just put him down there and forgot about him. Just were like, yeah, screw that guy. He's at the bottom of a lake. Leave him there. Zato's less than, 40 miles from him for 65 million years, and Morphin Masters never tell Zato about that. And they were like, hey, BT Dubs, your best friend's underwater over there. You want to go get him? Nope. Aeon got robbed. And then they had the nerve to come out and be like, it's the first Black 6th Ranger, guys. Oh my glob. And they left him at a lake, left him at the bottom of a lake for 65 million years. It sounds like you're real proud of the character. I think Zato wasn't a bad Ranger. It just never made him have depth. Well, if you ever watch the actor that portrays Zato in any other thing, he is great. Like, he's a fantastic actor, very talented, and Power Rangers might have destroyed his career. Because for whatever reason, they were like, no, we want you to act like you can't act. That way you look like an alien. Because you're an alien. You have antennas coming out of your head because you're an alien. Get it? You're an alien. Alien. And it was Furbus. It was Masked Rider all over again because, like, you have to be so alien that you don't act human, but you're trying to act human. So you have to pretend that you're bad at acting, and it just ruined him. It just ruined him. Had they just let him play, like there's some teenage drama he was in. It's where they pull a lot of these guys from. I think RPM Red Ranger was from the same show or network, but this guy played Zato. He plays a really great character that is an outsider in his environment. I think it's due to his racial background because he's Black and Asian. So I think that he's an outsider character, and that character should have been what he played as Zato. It would have been great. He had a motorcycle and everything. I think he smoked. It would have been great. You have the Rangers like, hey, you're spiraling, Zato. And he's like, whatever. Everyone I love is dead. Wouldn't you spiral? No. Instead, he's like, cool beans, cool beans, cool beans, cool beans. I hate it. Sagittarius Sayas says, if I were Austin St. John, I would sue Hayam Saban a long time ago. I don't think you can. They signed those contracts, and, a lot of them signed it because they were like, I'm going to be on TV, Mom. They didn't really think it through. I mean, in Austin St. John, I interviewed him on another channel a long time ago. It was about 2 years ago now. He was explaining that, like, the stunt guys and the lead actors were being paid the same thing. And they had no protection whatsoever. None. And so he was trying to unionize with them, and that's what got him in trouble and got him peace conference, is he wanted more pay, but moreover, he was trying to unionize the Power Rangers production crew. So he once you sign a contract, you're kind of stuck until you walk, and that's the problem. In a perfect world, Power Rangers wouldn't be laughed at. But unfortunately, it is. And that's why corporations don't know what to do with this, because unlike Superman or Spider-Man, a lot of people believe that Power Rangers is Barney. So they have to treat it like it's Barney, and completely forgetting about the violence, the depth of the concept. It's just because 1993 set a formula that 33 years later, we're still trying to fit inside of, I guess. Very bad idea. Conrad Javier says, Zato died for our sins. That should be a t-shirt. That's what I should do. I should make a bunch of Cosmic Fury critique t-shirts where just like they're like obscure silhouettes. So I'm not stealing anybody's intellectual property, but just create like a silhouette of the Zenith Ranger and like Zato died for our sins. That's a great t-shirt concept. Cosmic Fury probably... Cosmic Fury was Hasbro just trying to draw the brand down as fast as possible. Chris Cox was on a earnings call in 2023, same year that Cosmic Fury came out, and he admitted that Power Rangers was making less than $50 million gross revenue every year. So you can't make the Power Rangers TV show, action figures, and supporting media on $50 million. So that's not going to work. And that's why they gave it over to Playmates and just basically let it die on the vine. Like I said, they can't figure out how to match the violence and still retain that 5 to 8 year old demographic that they need in order to sell the toys to, but the kids aren't playing with the toys. So it's a Kobayashi Maru. It's a lose-lose situation so long as they stay in that 5 to 8 year old demographic, and they just refuse to leave it. What do you think about the 10 and 20 years anniversary episodes in Sentai? It's more genius from Toei. Like, they're geniuses. They know what they're doing. In my proposed reboot there that I showed you guys some of the lore to at the beginning there, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season X project that I'm working on, Season X doesn't end with the Mighty Morphin losing their powers and becoming the Zeo Rangers. Zeo is a separate team. It's made up of Adam, Kat, Tanya, Rocky, and a mysterious Zeo 5. You don't know Zeo 5. Well, you do know Zeo 5, but he's not who you expect. Let's put it that way. It's a he. Damn it, I spoiled it already. But Zeo 5, when I get around to Power Rangers Zeo Season X, when I start doing that one, they're fighting the war while the Mighty Morphin are down doing the Save the Hollow Earth story because of how time behaves differently in the Hollow Earth. So while the Rangers are down there for about a month, in the surface, it's been 2 years. So in the 2 years that the Mighty Morphin's been gone, a cross-dimensional war has happened between the Machine Empire, who has built a cross-dimensional bridge from their universe that they have fully conquered. And I have melted RPM into this, by the way. So they're coming from RPM's universe that they have fully conquered, and they have entered now this new Season X universe with the intent of conquering it as well. And the Zeo team was the only ones available to answer this because the Zeo crystals were the only power that were available to be tapped into without Mighty Morphin being around to do the fighting. And so that's how you do this, is that you make sure the teams stay unique so that 10 years later, you can bring Zeo back, you can bring Mighty Morphin back, and they didn't lose their powers. It's not some hokey thing that they've got their powers back for one day. They've had it all along. They've been doing their jobs all along, just like SPD 20 years later, just like Gokaiser 10 years later. They've been doing their thing right in the background. They just haven't been the focus of the story. So I think it's genius. The problem is that Power Rangers make sure that just about every team loses their powers at the end of the season to justify the need for a new Power Rangers team, whereas it just doesn't matter. Think of how many superheroes are in the Marvel Universe that are in Manhattan alone. How can anybody commit a crime in Manhattan without Thor, Daredevil, and the majority of the Avengers team showing up? How can Spider-Man fight crime without half of S.H.I.E.L.D. responding to the same issue? Okay? That's what I'm trying to explain, is that, like, you can just do that with Power Rangers. I have it set up right now that Zeo is going to fight their war in Stone Canyon. In the Power Rangers storyline, Stone Canyon is a neighboring town to Angel Grove, and that's where Rocky came from. He was a transfer student that moved to Angel Grove from Stone Canyon. So that's where I'm originating Zeo. Zeo will be fighting their war in Stone Canyon so that if there's trouble in Angel Grove, the Mighty Morphins can continue handling that, but they're not going to be the focus of the story. Zeo will be the focus. And Turbo will be born out of Zeo's resolution, and In Space will take place out of Turbo's resolution. But they don't want to do that. That's too hard to put the two pieces together. It's too hard for them to say these things can coexist the way that Batman and Superman managed to have apocalyptic events in Metropolis and Gotham without those things running into each other. Crazy. We have Sentai Ranger Donnie here saying Power Rangers Cosmic Fury still remains my #1 streaming show of 2023. I love that show despite some flaws and member berries. Okay. I'm not gonna be mad at you for liking it. I can't like a second of it. Like, everything about it annoys the hell out of me. So even Billy being back just drives me up the wall. So um I don't hate you for liking it. Let me make that abundantly clear. We're not enemies. I don't want anything bad to happen to you because you have a different idea or opinion of Cosmic Fury than I do. But just know that I don't speak highly of Cosmic Fury. Nothing against the production team, nothing against the actors. They were trying to do their best with what Hasbro handed them as a list of demands. They were not given enough time to deal with it, and they did their best. Honestly, I think Simon could have executed it a lot better. I think his cowardice to deal with Q Ranger really broke a lot of people's faith in his ability to run the show. And so it just sort of fell apart from there because their basic concept for Power Rangers was man in spandex does kung fu and fights stuff from space with giant monsters. They don't understand why you like Power Rangers. I think Cosmic Fury is probably a pretty good example of how completely off the mark they're trying to do. Because, like, Zeto's solution for Zed is more evil than Zed's solution for the Rangers. He traps Zed in a hell where Zed's dead wife. Rita's dead. She's gone. She's dead. They killed her. Remember? And Once and Always, bitch is dead. She's not like some soccer mom somewhere. And Once and Always, they murdered that bitch. And if Billy's there, that means that Once and Always was factual. It's canonical. So Zato, the good guy, traps Zed into a Mobius loop, forever being browbeaten, hated, dismissed, and emotionally tortured by the ghost magical construct of his dead wife. That's more evil than any Power Ranger plot I have ever heard in my life. And that's what the good guy's solution was. And they all laughed about it, watching Zed dutifully, lovingly serve the dismissive, angry ghost of his wife. I don't even think the devil could come up with torture that extreme, you know? And so it just completely missed the line for me. I understand why people would like it. It's hard, but I get it. And nothing against you. I don't think you're bad because you like it. I just have deep reservations with just about every single episode premise, almost every line that show has. Even right down to Ollie's costume. All of it was such a bad idea. And that's just me, though. Like I said, I'm not telling you that you don't belong here or you're wrong or whatever. I just do not have a high opinion of that season. So. But Sakura Mita's right. I am getting very tired. I have an unfortunate time limit the way your cell phone does. Like when I run out of battery power, I run out of battery power real fast. And we're coming up on that point. So I think it's probably a good time to cut it off here before I pass out on the microphone. But yeah, justice for Zed. Yes, justice for Zed. Again, I don't think the Power Rangers should be more evil than the people they're fighting. It's a crazy idea, but I just don't think they should be more evil than the people they're fighting. But as always, guys, there's a lot of stuff out there that will get underneath your skin and annoy you and cause a lot of headaches and extreme attitudes. So always remember to keep a cool head and good luck out there.
It's a creature feature on the dance floor tonight. Better move your body, 'cause the shadows bite. Moonlight creeping, fog so thick, skeletons grinding to a beat so sick, pumpkins glowing, DJ spell, monsters in the club and they dance to it. Don't fight the fright, just let it swing. Shake that ghostly, ghastly thing. The night is dark, but the beat's alive. Get your bones rattling to the creeping jive. Spooky, scary things. Hey, spooky, scary things. Whoa, they're crawling from the grave, but they just wanna rave. Spooky, scary things. Spooky, scary things. Shake.